In 1957, just a greenhorn, leaving school and looking for a job, going into broadcasting was something that I dreamt of. But that's only meant going into radio, because my old school, Holy Child College, still on the same site in Obalende, 2 streets away from the old NBC. I still can't forgive whoever changed the name to something else that is being called now FRCN. Because if the BBC remains BBC 100 years after the founding fathers, dreamt of starting television, radio from, all the war years and learning a bit from America. It all started from America. Because we were taught about all this. Every time they took us from school to take part in, school's debates on radio, we just walked across. It's all in Obalende and Ikoyi, Balende/Ikoyi. So I dreamt of doing something along the line. And then one of my teachers left us high and dry and went to be a newsreader on radio. Marie Tabio, who later became Mrs. Irikefe. Then we had people like Tung Adedoyin and Eno Souq. We used to listen to them on radio on the old, you wouldn't know anything about that now, the rediffusion. It was just, a little box in your home, and everybody looked forward to either listening to the 7 o'clock news in the morning or 6 o'clock or 7 in the evening. So that was all really all I had to do with broadcasting. And who was going to take me there was another matter altogether. Who would take you, little 16, 17-year-old girl, into broadcasting? But one had been bitten by the bug then. So, and only God knows where whatever dream you had was going to lead to. We read poetry, we did radio show, stage shows in school. The Catholic schools were very good for that. And my old school, just celebrating 150 years of its existence, just down the road from here on Broad Street. The nuns, they were all white nuns. No Nigerian nuns at the time that we were growing up. So all the dream they had, this kind of dream that we have now, going to England, but they were coming here to teach us. So I had learnt a lot of poetry. I had taken part in Festival of Arts, and I had gone to the biggest hall we had then was at King's College, which is also down the road. Means of transportation was your SS foot. No BRT, no bicycles or whatever. So we did it all just walking around and learning from our teachers. And of course, our mentors were the nuns, like I said. So in my wildest dream, there was no way that I was thinking of going into anything like broadcasting. That is going back to answer your question. But they had a lot of plans for the girl child. And not along the religious lines now. But actually, they came to actually engender this whole idea of pushing the girl child forward. And not just me, a lot of us. People like Mrs. Francesca Emmanuel, they also went through the whole gamut of all this dream that I'm talking about. Television itself was brand new in the world. I have to talk about radio because that was what I knew as a child. But television, when it started, we didn't even know. Maybe in America, and then it went to Australia, and then to France. No. France came after Nigeria. You wouldn't believe that, would you? That we were number 6. America, Britain, Germany, Australia, one other country, and coming now home to Nigeria, where you cannot help but give a lot of credit to the dreams of people like late Chief Obafemi Awolowo and one of his ministers then, Chief Anthony Enahoro. So that's how I believe this whole package was placed on their laps and sold to Nigeria, to the Western Nigeria government. On the radar were lots of other people like me who had dreams about becoming Miss Nigeria. So maybe that will now give you a little background about how I took part in the Miss Nigeria pageant, Western Nigeria, and I became Miss Western Nigeria. Somebody must have fine-tuned some little knots somewhere and said, okay, you probably might be able to deliver, because you are being interviewed when you go before the panel of judges, and somebody must have said, okay, that's a good material, you can come and take part in this. Before then, we had other people, Anike Agbaje Williams, Oliola Sokwe, who were working on radio. My dream was to work in radio, but then I missed that. And I was nursing, that dream of still going to radio. Never knew what television was all about. So maybe that answers your question, I'm not sure. But I took part in the Miss Western Nigeria pageant and I won. Took part in the Miss Nigeria contest and came second. So that meant that I didn't win. And if one of the, maybe the prize was to go on TV, it wasn't even there. It wasn't written into the, program that whoever did this, but the person was going to go to England. And so Helena Yemeluna, who won that contest, went to London and fulfilled her own dream. But I was still biting my nails, waiting for when I'll be able to get a job. There were other things that girls could do. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be an assistant, a dental assistant. All those were things that young ladies, can, fulfill their dreams along those lines. They're still there. You still have young ladies. Mrs. Muritala Mohammed, the first time I met her, she was a dental assistant. Little did we know that her husband was going to be the head of state and she would be first. So you see, lots of things were there for the young girl who wanted to learn, who had the talent, and who wanted to perform, and who wanted to work hard. But now I don't know if girls want to work hard. All they want is, the table to be set, and then they come and, partake of whatever is there. It wasn't too difficult at the time that I was picked as one of the people to come and appear on WNTV. The audition was actually carried out before my time. I got involved in so many other things, trying to get a job, something to secure, something, to alleviate poverty. There was not too much poverty in Nigeria at the time because people could still make a living for themselves and, get by in society. But I was lucky that I had an aunt who was a nurse in the hospital in Ibadan, UCH in Ibadan. And she was married to an Englishman, and the man's friend happened to have been the man, Mr. Mathers, who was brought as one of the technical partners to WNTV. So we met at a dinner party, and just as you and I are chatting, I was only 18 plus. I was 17 when I took part in the pageant. So by this time I was growing up, and I thought I was a big girl. So I opened my mouth and I said a few things, and the man looked at me and said, "How come you are not speaking with a Nigerian accent?" And I didn't know what he meant, because we were taught at St. Mary's to deliver whatever lines we were given to deliver. The Festival of Arts, I came second after an English boy from Corona School. and I was given a beating for coming second. Not because I didn't perform well, but because I forgot to curtsy. And one of the judges, I think, who was then Mrs. Abayomi, Lady Abayomi, said that I delivered my lines very well. If I were the Lord of Chartery, I would do this and that and the other. So I came second. And when I got back to the school, the nun, Sister Marieta, said, you were not paying attention. So whatever you do in life, you have to be consistent. You have to perform well. The way we're trying to do now, the way we're trying to project your voice and whatever it is you have to offer with a lot of humility, not, trying to show off or to project your own image, or whatever message you have to deliver, you have to make sure that it is well delivered. The following year, St. Mary's Convent School, which is my old school, which is 150 years old in existence, went to the same King's College Hall, and we beat a lot of secondary schools. We came first. Pied Piper of Hamelin. Have you ever heard of that poetry? Pied Piper of Hamelin was about someone who wanted to get rid of all the rats in Europe, and all he did was to play the pipe. So that is what we were more or less doing. That's what you and I are being a Pied Piper, trying to get off all the ills in society. That's the main job of a broadcaster. There's so many things happening in the country, and it's only TV and radio that binds the country together. If the country falls apart tomorrow, we will rely on someone from radio or from television to make the announcement, to introduce the head of state who has just won the election, or the one who has just taken over. It's a huge responsibility. At that age, at 19, we had to introduce people like Chief Obafemi Awolowo on TV. We had to introduce people like Akintola, Oladoke Akintola, as the premier. And when everything broke down and it all went into smithereens, they brought in Chief Majekodumi as the administrator of the Western region. All this happening before our eyes. There were no other stations in the country except WNTV. And we were there, so we learned quite a lot. In fact, I believe that the whole country revolves around broadcasting. And if you are part of that organization, how would you feel at my age, at 80-something? As young people, perhaps you don't know all this history that I'm telling you about. It's a long, long story. But when you sit down, you have to put it all into perspective. You see that, well, some people are actually meant to be in different positions. Some people are meant to be doctors. Some people are meant to be nurses. For those of us that are in broadcasting, it's a huge responsibility. It's a passion. Sometimes you don't even know how you got there in the first place. Or somebody may have discovered you. It's like being in Hollywood in those days. Someone has to develop, so you have the talent, the latent talent, and then somebody will discover you. So that's how I was discovered by Mr. Mathers at a dinner. I was put in that place because I had won the Miss Western Nigeria contest. If I hadn't done that, I probably would be somewhere in the kitchen washing plates, washing all the dishes. So there you are, if that answers your question. Well, there's no one that actually picks someone and puts you plonk without, I mean, of course, if you don't have any experience on the job, you have no business being there in the first place. But if I had taken part in Pied Piper of Hamelin Towns in Brunswick, I was only 13. By famous Hanover City, I was speaking like an English person. When I was only a Nigerian, little girl being nurtured, by my mother, who was a seamstress, how would you ever get there? But you already have that background. that solid background on the rock, as it were. So by the time I was ready to go on TV, I had learnt from all the other, people that I mentioned their names earlier, like Anike Agbaje Williams. And I wouldn't say it was easy, because you always have that, butterfly fluttering in front of the camera or wherever. I think I took to television like I was meant to be there, with all humility. If I had been groomed by all these nuns that I have mentioned their names, they came to Nigeria to serve the people. They were not earning salaries, To become a nun, you have to take the oath of obedience, chastity, poverty, and all that. So you're not earning a salary. But whoever is there now is thinking of how much money he's going to get from whatever take comes from here, there, and yonder. So they taught us well. And nobody said you're going to go and appear on TV or you're going to be on radio. But just do what you're meant to do properly. It's a lot of sense of responsibility and diligence. And that stands at the back of your mind. That goes everywhere with you, wherever you go in life. Even when I was nursing a sick child, my late son was a sick child. And I was meant to take part in Verdict 79 with my colleagues Kerry Ahmed and Adamu Aogi. They all came with me to the hospital, which is just next door here. And then we came back and mounted the podium and continued our business as if nothing was happening. He didn't die at the time, of course, but the job must go on. That is always there at the back of your mind. So my first night, I wouldn't say that I didn't have any jitters, that I was not nervous. But I was able to deliver, and I think that was the staying power. That was what kept me going, because other people came on board. I was not the only one. All the members of the board had their own, little nephews and nieces that they wanted to project on TV. They all came and they couldn't make it. But Anike and I kept going. And if you gave me a script now, I think I would try and... We didn't have too many, what do you call it then, teleprompters. But I was very good at, I had a photographic memory. So I was able to get hold of the script, and in less than 60 seconds, I'll be able to deliver it straight to the camera. That was one of the assets that I had also, which was God's gift. It's not by own might or whatever you think you have. You have the talent, of course, but also there has to be some other little bits of gifts that will help you to project the image of a professional. A lot of controversy. There is hardly any TV, radio, movie personality that can scale through that without any, because people are watching, people are trying to find their own little, bits of criticism here, there, and yonder. You can't be a goodie, 2 shoots without, any, how shall I say it, problem here, there, and yonder. So everybody has their own way of looking at people. People say, well, what has she got to do? She went to take part in Miss Western Nigeria the other day. So what's the big deal about her? And then somebody will still add their own salt and pepper here and there. But I was lucky that I was being nurtured by someone like T.O.S. Benson, who was then our Minister for Information. And he felt that, you know, everything should not stop here. There were things happening in America. He made sure that my name was there. I was at the inauguration of President Johnson, Lyndon Johnson. And we commanded a lot of attention there, myself and my colleague who came from Lagos, the station in Lagos. And for the president to notice that there were two black people sitting behind him at his inaugural ball, I think it was very overwhelming for me, because not many black people had invitation to that event. But Charity Adadevo and I were there, and he stood up and shook our hands where we were sitting, behind, 3 rows behind the president. Then Kennedy had died, and we were still not seeing, you know, we were still feeling very hot about, you know, the loss of Kennedy. And here was the new president coming up. We were not particularly keen on being welcomed by him. But then, you know, things like that happen to you, and it makes headline news. 2 black people, they didn't even say Nigerians. They thought we were from Ghana, because some journalists came around and said, "How is your man Nkrumah?" And we said, "No, our own Prime Minister is Tafawa Balewa." They never heard of him then. But then they had to go and carry out their own study and find out who Tafawa Balewa was. And of course, the whole country was very proud of us that we went and actually stole the show at the inauguration of President Lyndon Johnson. So many other things happened. When I came to London, the British Information Office, they were trying to look for someone to host their program. That has happened to be around, so they picked me to host their program. But you don't ad-lib on any of those stations. Everything is written out. The questions, even your answer will be written. You can change it around a little bit, but they make sure that you said the right thing at the right time. So that was how we were able to gain attention. German television also invited us because they were interested in Nigeria. See how the German Chancellor came to Nigeria. That was what happened at the time. In 1963, we had just gained, we had just become a republic then, from being an independent station in 1960. By 1963, we then became a republic. And we were chosen to go and appear on German television in Berlin. And they wanted a little bit of culture. So Benson had his own band. So we were chosen to go and represent Nigeria then. Nobody knew who the ambassador was, but they wanted to know who was presenting something on TV. So that's how important television has been. And that, in fact, we were the first television in the whole of Africa. The very first station, WNTV, that was a call signal. WNTV, first in Africa. There's nothing like that now. Nobody wants to know whether you are first or second. But the station that is being run in Nigeria, I think, has the largest number of stations than any other country in Africa, about 21 stations. And now it's still, you know, still counting. And yours is coming on board, and so many others. I think next to America, Nigeria should have been the best country for television broadcasting in the whole world. There's not so many countries in the world that has as many stations as Nigeria. We only have to put our heads together. We only have to find joy in whatever we're doing. Sometimes when it's raining, people say, "Oh, it's raining," and they feel very bad about the rain. But if you look closely, behind that rain, there will be sunshine, there will be something else coming on. You see some silver clouds coming during the rain, but Nigerians don't have the patience to wait for that kind of thing. That's what television teaches you. you're in the studio, you don't know what's happening outside. You just get on with the job. That's what we were taught. We were taught not by Nigerians. Even when we started, we couldn't go on air and ad-lib. There was always someone there, Mr. Blackledge, to write the script. And if you can commit that to memory and deliver it, they're home and dry. It's not everyone that has a gift, not everyone that has a talent. It's God-given. And if you listen as a child at 17, 18, 19, at my own age, I learned from school, and I was able to impart this into the job. So within a few months, we got double promotion, all of us, because we were doing very well. Anike Agbadi was excellent. Olasope was superb. And so many other people reading the news. We were the first female to read the news. Women were not allowed to read the news. Nigeria started it. BBC wouldn't allow a woman to pick up a script and read the news. But we were already there. So that's how we were able to gain this global attention that you mentioned. It's not easy. Not easy. Like I said, when we were taught by, not by Nigerians. But somebody came along the line and said, we don't have to speak like English people. You can just carry on and use your own parochial background. If you are a Roboman, you can speak English the way you like. That was his own idea. Because he didn't believe in us doing all this la-di-da and trying to, say things the proper way. But that watered down the standards a bit. Because then everybody, maybe he had a relation who wanted to appear on TV, and he wasn't allowed to because he couldn't speak like Ikenanda Goba or Bodelalade and things like that, or Friday Fude or Mike Nahuru. So somebody must have gone to him and said, because he doesn't speak like any of those people who were taught by, foreign teachers, people who had learned, people who knew what a DJ, we had a Bible then, that you had to pronounce your words correctly. So he came and said, now that I'm DG, I'm not going to tolerate all this, your English way of speaking. And some other people, of course, that watered down the standards. That's not our making. We were still ready to continue the way we were doing, but then they pushed us to the background. But there were others who were able to perform well. Ruth Benamesia, Opia, Siene Oweba, and of course Bimbo Oloyede, who was born in England. If you already employed those people to deliver the goods and to present your programs, you're not going to sack all of them because they speak with English accent. I don't see how that can be an offense. Cannot be, guilty of speaking English well, like the English people. But they then brought out other people. And you had the head of presentation. I became head of the presentation after I came under Guba. And you're trying to prepare your roster. You wanted to put such people online to read the network news. They say, okay, bring somebody who can speak like the Rajijedidu and do a little bit of Ewe on the side. It's part of our culture. So that is what is happening to TV broadcasting in Nigeria. It's all very interesting. So, this cultural milieu and bringing, a touch of Nigeria. Nigeria is doing well. In that aspect, in the music world, I think we're leading. Some of us who grew up on Handel's Messiah and Mozart, we have to sort of put our hands behind our back now and watch, all the way things have turned around. And Nigerian music is doing well. Afrobeat is raining everywhere in the world. So really you can't find faults with that. So when they watch a bit of Fela and his children and all his grandchildren doing well, then listen to the channels on TV, you have to take what you get from there as well. If somebody can wake up one day and say, why should your station be called the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation? I say it should now be Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. Tongue twisting. It takes a long time to come to terms with. If everyone wake up in the morning and say, this is Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, you have the call signal. Da 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 da. This is the Nigerian Broadcasting whatever. How are you going to put that, into context with the new one? First of all, when you wake up, you don't know whether you are even coming out of the right side of your bed or not. You are going to have to face your audience and say, we are no more the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. We are now Federal whatever, which you don't even know where the man, who came up with the idea. He didn't even consult you, didn't even put it to test. If the British corporation, they are going to change from BBC after 100 years, they will ask the whole nation, they will say, where are we going to take this from? They will ask everybody, they will do a census, they will do all kinds of things, carry out all kinds of tests to see whether people will accept it from them. No. Nigerians are very hard and cut and dry. This is the way I want it. I'm the head of state, so I can change everything now, and all of you can start marching forward and march back again. Soldier go, soldier come. I think Fela would have been a good head of state for Nigeria, because he would have got some people marching the right way. So, I think that is what has happened to this country. But we will still settle down. The soldiers that have been marching since, they will do attention one day. And then we'll be able to sort ourselves out gradually. I think we're going through the right process now. People are beginning to find their own feet. If things go around, price of goods go up, Nigerians will find a way to come to terms with that. When we were growing up, everything was done, we won't say according to the colonial rules and regulations, but at least there were standards that were set down for you and things that you had to toe the line. This is the proper way to do things. But if somebody says, no, let's turn around and turn it upside down. First stack. It's the only thing that has happened to the whole world from Nigeria, that shook the whole world, that brought everybody attention to see what Africa has to offer the whole world. It happened here on this soil in Nigeria. I was a member of the ceremonial committee. I remember the opening ceremony there were about 15 heads of state. We've never had anything like that since then. That is what we should ask ourselves. Every head of state that takes over from Nigeria should find out again. It's not from broadcasting that you can get the answer. You can get the answer from technocrats who had worked in all those areas. What happened? How come it couldn't happen again? It's like Armageddon. Every country was represented. Every culture was represented. Miriam Akiva was watching us and called us at the station one day and said, even from the way we linked programs, they couldn't expect that it could be happening in Nigeria. We received phone calls. People were sending us bottles of champagne on the air. The links. Bimbo Oloyede was there with me. I was at the opening ceremony. I was yanked from there to come back to the station from, you know, interacting with the head of state or with our head of state at the time to come and man the station because the work was phenomenal. How come we've not been able to do it? 77 years, how long ago was that? I was only 37 years old then. I'm going on 90 now. It hasn't happened again. We should examine that. Even the head of state that was there is still alive. Let us ask him again. Let us put him down and say, Oga, please explain to us what happened. Some people came up with a theory that the symbol that was used was fetish. That is what has happened and Nigeria has turned upside down. If that is acceptable, it may be superstitious in your eyes, but let us find out. Let's go call the Babalawo. Is it bad that it is a Nigerian that carved this image? And it is making news outside the world. Now you say, no, it is not good that Nigeria should be able to project an image that would attract the whole world. Something that will bring everybody on their knees. After the first attack, we were still recovering, just batting in the glory of first attack. What's this artist, the blind one, who was not part of it, who didn't believe in it, he came and had his own first attack, all on his own, from America. Stevie Wonder, he came with his whole team. We had to mount all the cameras back in the studio for him. He had his own 7-day festival here in Nigeria. What prompted him to do that? Other people came. They wanted to know what was happening in Nigeria. What has happened? We couldn't have another festival since then.
What do you think went wrong?
Nothing went wrong. Everything went so well that people wanted to destroy our own Nigerian people. Wanted to destroy the glory that's this whole thing that emanated from it. It hit the whole world. People are asking, when you go to Britain, you say, what happened? Why aren't you having? I had a friend who was head of the, he was from the British Guyana, a black guy. He was friends with everybody. He knew all Nigerians. Said, what happened? Why are you going to have another festa? Professor Ian Hall, he keeps asking me. Even if we can't have it because it was very expensive anyway, Nigeria had all the money. Even though we had a coup after, you know, it was first of all the brainchild of Gawan. And then Muritala came on board. Muritala was killed, but in spite of that, they couldn't kill that dream of having a festac in Nigeria. If we are able to bring out all those programs again, I think we'll be able to answer those questions. I'm still alive. There are a lot of people who will still want to know the answer to that. It's a very, very brilliant question that you have asked. I think if it was another country, we'll set up an inquiry and say, what happened? Can we resuscitate this whole dream? Some of the tapes that we had then in WNTV, some people put them in one place and set fire to them because they felt maybe somebody in their religious organization said, you are the one projecting all these things, so Nigerians are bringing idols around. Who gave them the idea to make the idol? It's God now. It's from God. Whatever thing you were able to put together. The Bible was put together because God loved the world so much and He wanted us to learn about, things that had gone out from the time of Adam and Eve. God loved the whole world and created Muhammad and said, put people together and let them say Allah Akbar every day, morning, noon, night. God created so many wonderful things for us, so many images that we can imbibe from, so many things that we can learn from. People want to come and learn about our country. Instead, we say, we want our sculptures back. What are you going to do with them? You don't have a museum where you're going to put them make them thrive, and people come here to Nigeria. It's a good idea for them to come, but if they learn about your country, country, what your people have done over the past 2,000 years. 2,000 years of Nigeria image was put together by the BBC. Nigeria went and tore it up in shreds. He tore it up. He said, what are you doing with that? What you call bad belly. I don't know if anybody sang a song with that title. If we maybe start from there and say, what do you do with your own bad belly? Some people, National Stadium. There is no theatre in England, in London, that I know that I've gone to watch plays and things that have not been in existence for over 500 years. So many studios. We have one big one, the dream of Nigerians. And now we want to go and do banking there. We want to go and do trade. It's supposed to be for culture, for our own culture. Lagos State will be dragging federal government by the neck and say, no, we own the theatre now, and we want somebody to come and do something there. If we can only put all these things behind us, the evil that people have done in the past, people like Julius Caesar, when they were writing all those, when Shakespeare was writing all those things like that have happened in the past. We should examine them. Get people like Wole Soyinka to sit down and rewrite the whole history again. If they ask me questions like you are asking me now, I will be there to answer, because I saw it all unfold before my eyes. The image of Nigeria will come tops. All the stations in Nigeria should get involved and do stories on this question that you've asked me. Very salient question, and I love it so much. That might be able to revive the image of this country and let us know where we are heading, in what direction, and bring us back to really the point of salvation. Well, I haven't seen it. I must have mentioned it somewhere. I think on one of the channels. When they was trying to build the scandal around it, and I said, and I tried to put the record straight. That wasn't really what happened, and that it was from, I think it was from a book that was written by one of the wives that said that I was party to his breakdown of their marriage. And I was trying to put the record straight that that wasn't really the true picture. I have due respect. I have to, bow wherever I come in the presence of a president of this nation, past, present, or even present, yes. I hope I'll still be around when we have others coming on board, but I was taken aback that the head of state asked me a question that, because in the past, we were in the studios when the head of state came, and we were given scripts. If there had been, there have been several coups, and it's always the presenter or the station like that, the managers that take the brunt of the whole, issue when things like that happen. You don't know who's coming. You don't know how many jeeps are going to be coming in. You don't know how many, what you call all those heavy equipment that they drive in as they are coming into the studio. You don't know where they are going to shoot the station down. Nobody knows that. It's only the people who have worked during that period that can relay those experiences. Sometimes you're at work in the morning, by the time you come back in the afternoon, the government has changed. And if you haven't got maybe your ID card, you won't be allowed into the station, or somebody can throw you in or into jail. So all this had happened in the past. Nobody has told any of these stories. People like Segun Lushola or Dr. Kolade. Somebody might come and say, so has happened. I was driving my former husband to work in the morning. I dropped him at the station. By the time I reached home, there had been a coup. Murtala had been killed. And they were under siege, the whole station. Just imagine that kind of scenario. You know, things like that had happened in the past. But Nigerians don't have that sense of history that wants to sit down and say, well, we want to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Of course, we'll pray that it doesn't happen again. And you wake up in the morning and somebody is announcing something else, different from what you have. A colleague of ours had been, you know, pushed into something that he wasn't aware of. Those are kind of situations that have happened in the past. But this one, we were all dressed in ceremonial costume and trying to, you know, I was the only one that was asked to stay in the presidential, what do you call it, special area that is demarcated for head of states on issues like that. And all of a sudden, the president is following me all about. And I said, this is getting too close for comfort. And I said, what's your name again? I said, my name is Julie Coker. I was trying to play innocent, that I didn't know what was happening. He said, hey, how much did this your dress cost? Can't have, sorry, sir. I don't think I'm the proper person to answer that question, sir. Yeah, you don't have answer. It's a bit unprofessional. I mean, not in the profession per se that we mean, but I wasn't prepared for that kind of thing. So I must have given a rude answer to that. And then, before I knew it, Adelanwa, who was then the head of Navy, came to me and said, you have been very rude to the president. The president said, he asked you a question and you couldn't answer. I said, good morning, Mr. President, sir. Because when we introduce them on TV, that's how we introduce them. We're now going to be addressed by a new head of state, Mr. So, sir. And I said, you should go and ask the president of Festac. I'm sure he has a record of what the question is asking me can be answered, better answered by the president of Festac. If he finds that unbearable or rude, then either that one is not doing his work well or I'm not doing my work well and I don't belong here. But I carried on regardless. Shortly after that, another top army officer, Joseph Garuba, that one was the tallest man next to Ufwe Bonye, or the one from Mali. And he said, Julie, I know you can be rude at times. I said, not on this occasion. This is a wonderful occasion for the whole nation. And I'm trying to be my best behavior. And he said, the president said, I'm being very rude to him. He said, I know you, maybe you can say things. And I said, no, I never. He asked how much the dress cost. And I don't think I have an answer, which may contradict what will be on record if you really examine it thoroughly. I was getting very nervous at the time. So I dropped everything and disappeared from the scene, and I never went back again. But the thing reverberated right down to all the committees and members. My late auntie, what's her name? Kentebe, which was a lady, commodore of the Navy. She said, Julie, I think she heard that she was going to be sacked that day because the naval officer sent to her and said, you are the one that did this. And I said, can never, God forbid, can never reach me because I'm not in the forces. I'm doing my own job here as a professional broadcaster. I think it has reached a stage now where whatever you say might be taken against you, because there are so many people going to court now and people sent to jail, but things were not as bad as they are now, because some of the gory stories we hear and people being, penalized and sent to jail, I think it has reached an astronomical level that it's something that's actually, maybe it was there and people did not want to open the canker worms and let us see what is really happening. In my own case, it was a deliberate attempt on the part of an aunt of mine who felt that there's no child that should continue going to school at a certain age. And they were trying to arrange for me to get married to somebody. And it's a tradition of our people, in Delta, to find out whether the girl is still a virgin. Then they go and look for one old man. It's not this, the one that is happening is child abuse now. I don't know what to call that one. There are other cases too of children being sold into, prostitution and apply this a trade that by some madams, which is not really acceptable. But there are other areas that maybe some parents cannot pay for their children's school fees, so they send them, into child labor or whatever. I think every child should be given a chance to have, proper education. If our all can start free and fair education to children, whether all genders, boys and girls, see what the results that have come out of that. But in some other parts of Nigeria, they believe that that it's not acceptable in their religion, and so they still keep the children down and send them into early marriage. And a lot of people have dealt, people like Dr. Simi Johnson, they were in the forefront of that vanguard to liberate the children who have been kept into powder at age 13. And when they have children, they are not able, either they die premature deaths from, being too early to go into pregnancies and have the children properly and things like those different stages. It's a very serious issue that actually I think has been well looked into, not by the United Nations or by, but Nigerian government itself should look at it more, more serious terms and try to find how to deal with it. But there's something that happened in some homes, which is now coming out now, which in the past, members of the family would not allow maybe a woman that is a victim. The child is a victim, but there are other, things that sort of trigger down the line, like a wife, for instance, who is watching her husband, trying to abuse children that are under their care. And the children definitely cannot, rise to the level that a child who is being abused at an early stage cannot continue with her education. So I have been involved in issues like that because I was affected as a 13-year-old when an aunt of mine felt that I should stop going to school. But I was rescued by another aunt. So I was lucky at the time. Not many people have been able to, get through all this kind of trauma. I was lucky that just at the time, the man was busy talking to some other people, and it's like somebody being kidnapped and another person coming to your rescue. So I was lucky at my own, to escape that unscathed and get on with my life. If I hadn't gone through, maybe I would have been having 13 children. It's good to have children so that the population will multiply. But then you have to make sure that the children are able to, get on with their education. And when you educate that child, is able to look after other children. I've raised so many children in the process, because I was able to earn enough money to take care of members of my family. And that is what everybody should sort of, try and rise up to that challenge. Our chief Folani Koka was the Babeto of Lagos. So, and I used to accompany him to the palace of Oba Oyekon. And someone then said, well, Yeto, why don't you let... He wanted his wife to be the Yeto, but she rejected it. She said she didn't want to because, she thought they were going to perform some fetish. This is really fetish. My brother now turned to me and said, Julie, do you want the title? I said, no, it's not for me to say, because I wasn't terribly keen. But he said he was going to carry out all the preparations. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, why not? And the late Oba Adeyinka Oyekon graciously offered me the title. I accepted and went through the ceremony. So I've been a Yeto of Lagos now for getting on 40-something years. We only have one majesty in England. And that is one of the oldest institutions in the world. Some other countries are getting rid of their heads of their traditional rulers. France doesn't have one, for instance. There are some countries in Europe, I think in Finland, that still have, kings and queens and all that. But Nigeria, every little village, every doorstep has one title. This is the palace of the so. It wasn't like that in our own time. You had only one Oba in Lagos. Now you have so many. You have several Obas. This one claiming this and that. Itiosa, whatever. After a while, there's going to be a clash. Maybe not in our own time. So if they are playing traditional roles, somebody will lay claim to some title that belongs to somebody else and another one. There's no end to it. So let them stay the way they are now. If they want to multiply, that has nothing to do with me, because we don't have any say in that. It's not, because you can say now that this station is trying to sell this idea, to be propagating an idea that should not be. I don't think anyone should play any constitutional role. If each one has its own, in the states, at the state level, they take it, I think it's rotated. After a while, one steps down, another one takes over at that level. If they want to go and attend the meeting at the House of Assembly, that's up to them. But at the federal level, I think, no. No. I don't approve of it at all. Because then you will have some woman coming on and saying that the one that is entitled to the title. It's not, I don't know whether any African country actually accepted that sort of thing. So Nigeria shouldn't start. Nigeria at certain points in any of these things. Once Nigeria starts, other people will start. And before you know it, the whole thing will skyrocket and another war starts. We have enough problem on our hands as it were now. No, we are lagging behind. It's such a terrible shame that we only have about 4 women in the Senate. It's ridiculous. We seem to be dancing backwards. In that regard, I think we're falling short. Totally. There was a time when there were more. There doesn't have to be more women in the Senate. I think there should be maybe 50%. Not even 30-something affirmative, whatever that they're going to Beijing to talk about. There should be more. There should be more women participating in politics. I don't know whether it's because, no. I don't want, I just believe that we should have more women in politics. Because women are more sensible. Our women are glamorous, they come out looking beautiful, but their contribution to national issues, I think, more. Look at a man who went to beat up somebody in the hospital, then he says he's a hero. Hero of where? That kind of man should not be allowed to even come and address the press. Maybe the press find it funny humorous to feature somebody like that. There's no woman that will come on TV and speak like that. If you examine every single one of the men, they all have different issues. Some of them have issues about wives and men and things that they have been doing, or they are corrupt and they have been taking money, dipping their hands into different coffers. No woman would do that. I think women are more, serious-minded, and they address issues the way they should be addressed, and they will take more care of issues that affect the nation, girl-child issues, health issues. The men don't even care about health issues. They don't even want to know what's happening. The men even wear bigger agbadas than when they are going to the house. First of all, they should cut down on the amount of clothing that some of them wear. They spend more time thinking of their image, how they're going to appear. Since television has now gone into the chambers, you find that they spend more time, on things like that. And it's ridiculous. We watch other countries, the way their parliamentary issues are being addressed. We're not learning anything from that. We shouldn't be learning from them. They should be coming to learn from us if we're doing the things we're supposed to be doing properly. But if women are really at the forefront of all this, I'm sure that they'll be able to calm all those hot issues that erupt sometimes in the houses. With worry, my mother. I was brought up as an Ichekiri child by my mother. I was taught to sing Ichekiri songs, to speak Ichekiri well, to address issues that affects the people of worry. My stepfather, who also had a hand in my upbringing, was an Ichekiri man. So I think that takes care of all those things. Well, I was brought up in Lagos, so I have this dual kind of nationality, and I knew my father came from Egba land, but I didn't have much to do with him. I only have connection with the family, like, Toye Koka, who was my uncle, who took care of me as well, but he was too busy doing other important things. But occasionally when they're having issues in the family, I'm invited like a stranger. But because I speak Yoruba very well, and I passed all my exams, and I used to do all my programs in Yoruba in Ibadan in those days on radio, WNBS. So I can still hold my head high in that regard. I think I function very well. It's like the King of England. He sometimes goes home to his Greek family. When, Prince Charles, when he was prince, he used to go on holidays with his family from the Greek side. And in fact, it looks like some of them sometimes when they are together. So yeah, I think it's allowed. Well, one of the first one, my 40 years in TV, which is actually showcasing all the my life in broadcasting from the early stages, which actually should have answered some of the questions, was a textbook in Kenya for many years, because the minister came to Nigeria, and my DG then, Mohammed Ibrahim, had a whole box full of the books, And he gave them to the minister. And when the minister got there, he requested for more copies of the book. I never got paid for it, but I was delighted that they found the book so interesting. So maybe I'll get someone to serialize the book on TV sometime. We tried to do it some years ago because I cannot be telling the stories all over again. This is about maybe another 30 years story. Again, we've done another sort of edition, My Life in the Limelight, which is the latest one. So if you have time, if you create space, you might be able to tell the stories and take it stage by stage. That's why I sell the book, and also, you know, we get some media attention from sponsors and get things going. The sky will be the limit then. Well, eat well, eat the right food, type of food, eat chicory pepper soup, or anybody else who's cooking pepper soup now, because then you don't have too much oil. I think that damages certain things in the tissues. And if you want to avoid having cancer, there's nobody in my family that has ever died of cancer because of the type of food we eat. So get someone, you know, to prepare. You know, there was a time when chicory food was being prepared in the museum, and people used to go there to collect the ingredients and the menu, and people live well. So like people are eating Chinese food, which is good. It's healthy and lots of vegetables. I recommend that for people. I'm not saying that I very good health, but I still walk about on crutches. I don't know, my knees are not functioning very well. But still, if you say you paid me compliments, I accept it. Thank you very much indeed.
And so we'll be looking at something else now, but this time around, I want to look at his work globally and his experience of the Russia-Ukraine war. You know, Dr. Adelaja Femi has his church in Ukraine. And so the invasion of Ukraine by Russia affected a lot of things, a lot of people. And he was there at a time in 2022 when the war broke out. So we need to know what his experience has been like. Because in a video that Dr. Sunday Adelaja posted in February 2022, he talked about how he and his wife had to escape from the besieged Kiev because his name was on the list of Russian President Vladimir Putin. So what exactly was he talking about? What was the experience like to be in that kind of situation?
I could imagine, you know, the pain, the suspense, you know, the disbelief, you know, when you as a pastor, you have a very huge congregation like that. His church, you know, before the invasion, you know, was the largest church across that area, you know, in Europe. So I can imagine the pain, the disbelief, and then the disappointment when that kind of people are looking upward to you. I can imagine his ordeal on that day when the war broke out, how to take care of his church members, how to accommodate their welfare, their concern, even talking about his family. And these are things we would like to have that conversation with him. Glad to have you join us once again, Dr. Sunday Adelaja.
Thank you so much.
It's always been a pleasure having you around. We would like you to recall what actually happened, or where you were, or your ordeal, your experience with your congregation, the way it happened, the day the invasion of Ukraine, the war broke out. What was your experience? Can you share with us your ordeal, your experience, and then how have you been faring since then?
Thank you so much for this question. We had been hearing about the war coming, that the war was looming from Russia against Ukraine for about 2-3 months before it happened. And someone like myself, not just me, most people in Ukraine, there were some people who believed it, but maybe 70% of the people didn't really believe that it's possible. Because the Ukrainian and the Russian people are the same people, basically. It's just like saying the Egbas and the Ijebus, or we're talking about the the Ijebus and the Oyos. I mean, we are the same people. So, and to see that kind of thing happen was very devastating. So, because we didn't believe in it, that the war was coming, we never made preparation enough to maybe get out earlier or hide ourselves, or even the church members, or protect people, because it just came suddenly. So I was sleeping in my room, in my house near Kiev, in the city of Bushi, and that Bushi city, or Irpen, was later known as a very famous place where war crime had taken place. Anyway, so at about 6 o'clock, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, we started hearing bombs like I never experienced in my life. We never had anything like this. We were awakened by this sound of explosions everywhere, shelling. Then I decided to look into the window and see what's happening. Then I saw rockets flying, fire everywhere, just across our house to a military airport near us. And then I even saw Russian soldiers dropping down from the helicopter. It was horrible and scary. So we decided that we were going to stay. But I was praying about it. Then I got a call from somebody who was highly placed in our society, from the government, and said, leave now. That Pastor Sunday, you have to leave. I said, why? And I knew that because the American government had warned Ukraine that there is a list of people that are going to be eliminated if they get to Kiev and the influencers of the country. And then this person was telling me, you are in that list. Your name is in that list. You've got to leave. My wife, being a pastor herself, she was very hesitant. She was saying, how do we live with all these members looking up to us? I said, we just have to just leave now, and then we'll take care of that later on. So, and in our house, when this thing started, a lot of people started rushing to our house. We had people staying in our house. We had a underground premises in our house. So even people who are not members of our church started staying in our house. And so we escaped. We escaped to Poland, and from there to Germany and to the West. And but then we have to make arrangement to help those people in our house also escape. And and up right now, almost 50% of our church members are scattered all over the world, different countries. And we still have members, about 50% are still left in Ukraine, and trying to escape and survive and maintain their faithful, their service to God despite the war.
So you are currently located now in Texas in the U.S. How has relocation impacted your ministry?
Of course, when you have to leave everything you have worked for for the past 40 years of your life in a hurry one day, and you couldn't even go to the bank to withdraw money, and you you have a house where you had people living in that house, and then you have thousands of members of your church. Then you have to live with a small bag, let's say handbag, and your wife and your family. It changes the course of your life entirely, completely. Yeah, it's something you would not wish for your enemy.
All right. There's this report about the president of Russia, Putin, targeting influencers. Why do you think you're on that list? Perhaps could it be because of your influence? I would like you to shed more light on this.
Oh, definitely, yes. Even before the war, a few years before then, I used to go to Russia from Ukraine, because Ukraine and Russia are neighbors. So whatever happens in one country affects the other. So our church was growing dynamically in Ukraine. So definitely we had a lot of Russians in our church as well in Ukraine. Then we started planting churches in Russia as well. We planted over 100 churches in Russia. But after we crossed the threshold of 100 churches, and we had a lot of churches that are very influential within Russia itself, even in Moscow. And I used to go there to do programs. One day I was on my way to Russia, and then when I arrived at the airport in Moscow, I was detained. I was arrested. So, and then they said they had to send me back on the next available flight back to Ukraine. What is my crime? They gave me a paper that had been declared a persona non grata, and that President Putin and the Russian government see me as an agent of imperialism, or of the Western imperialism, and that the values that I preach is giving people freedom. And when people are experiencing freedom like that, they want that I'm encouraging people to obey God rather than the government. So anyway, I decided to protest this. We went to court. The courts in Russia threw it out and said, you can't sue the government. So this was before the war. So before the war, I knew I was already in trouble with the Russian government. And they would not allow me to go in there. And they started attacking our churches in Russia. They started clasping down on them. So it was when they said I was on the list of the people that they were targeting in Ukraine, it was only natural, because I had been an enemy and a thorn in their flesh before them.
That's it. We must commend you for your courage, for your determination, and I think that's why you're being celebrated all over the world. I can imagine what you went through, and you are standing tall and strong. We commend you for that. Away from that, let's look at the ongoing war, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. How do you see things turning out? Do you think Russia can sustain this war? And then Ukraine, do you think this counter-offensive, they can also sustain it? How do you see things panning out when it comes to this ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine?
Every war always ends on the table of negotiation. So I think that this war also will end with one kind of negotiation or the other. But also, no matter what happens in the history, even when nations and countries are annexed, nothing will ever take over Ukraine. Ukrainian people will remain. Ukraine will remain Ukraine. The people will remain the people, no matter the outcome of the war. Either we are going to win in the war, we are going to lose in the war, we remain. The people will remain, the country will remain. And so I'm not afraid of that. What is really breaking my heart is the fact that every day, young men, especially men, and women also, but men, are dying. Maybe we have 1,000 people die, Ukrainians die every day since this war started. 1,000. Can you imagine 1,000 healthy men died a day? So that That is so devastating. When you sustain that for 1 year, or even if it is 100 people dying every day, by the time you sustain that for 1 year, 2 years, that is heartbreaking. That is very sad. But I know that no matter what happens, God knows how to turn everything for good. The Bible says that everything works out for good for those who love Him and are called by Him. So I know that, like in the Acts of the Apostles, when the destruction came upon Jerusalem and the church there had to be scattered, we thought it was a tragedy. But that church went ahead to become the missionaries that we see all over the world. From that church, the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ spread to the four corners of the earth. There was something beautiful that came out of it. And the Jewish people spread all over the world. And the best scientists, the richest individuals in almost all parts of the world now are Jewish people. And there is a way God can turn any tragedy and anything that the enemy meant for evil to good in the long run. In the short term, it might look that it's not reasonable, it's not possible. But in the long run, something beautiful will come out of this war as well for Ukraine and for our people.
Okay, in recent times, we've seen that Russia has been doubling efforts to strengthen political and economic ties with African countries. Why is Africa important to Vladimir Putin? And should African leaders be concerned about this?
Well, with Putin, he's been cornered. He's been driven to the wall. His backs are at the wall right now because most countries that they used to trade with have rejected Russia. Most countries have declared Russia as a terrorist country. Maybe not all countries, but a lot of countries have done that. Maybe not as terrorists, but they have sanctions. They have declared sanctions against Russia. So they need new partners. They need new friends. And this is why they now turn to countries that they didn't pay too much attention to before now, like African countries. I think the part of it that is a bit worrying is the fact that the Wagner group and the military or the militarized Russia is entering into Africa. We don't need that. That is what our leaders have to be careful of. We don't need any military invasion of any African country. Unfortunately, a lot of African countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, are rather inviting them to come because they help them to fight the insurgents of Islamist insurgents. But that could backfire because we see what's happening in Ukraine and everybody should learn from that, especially in Africa.
All right. In recent times, West Africa has been plagued by military uprisings and coup. The latest has to be that of Gabon. Now, talk to us. What are the lessons inherent in this for African leaders? And then what are the underlying factors that has to be taken into consideration for this uprising to cease and for us to have civilians being restored in those countries?
Well, I think there is a message coming very loud and clear to all our leaders that you have to work for the improvement of people's lives. That if people's lives are not improved, if the standard of living of people are not improved, if people don't feel the benefit of democracy, that they are going to call for violence, they are going to call for regime change or even for coups. And these are the things that we are seeing in those countries. And so it's a loud call to all countries of Africa that work for the good of your people. And then corruption is another point that is another thing that is teaching us is that we must decry corruption, especially in the governments of Africa. As long as those corruptions are spreading and increasing in the government circles, people are going to keep on demonstrating and calling for intervention, either of military or of Russia or of external forces. So it's a big lesson that the government must sit up, and begin to do everything possible to bring better life to their peoples.
Okay, there's been a new dimension to the quest for global influence by these three centers of power, the US, China, and Russia. And also the rivalry between US and China has increased. Do you see this leading to a new world order?
Well, that is the good part of it. That is one positive thing that everybody should celebrate in this whole tragedy. You see, in the beginning, I said this war that is happening between Ukraine and Russia will end up with something good. And one of the good part of it that is going to happen is the new world order that we are already beginning to experience. And the fact that recently there was this BRICS summit in South Africa, and where new members were accepted into BRICS, and these are new forces that are coming up in other parts of the world that are saying, you know, things must be changed, and things cannot be the way they used to be before. And they are breaking the stronghold of neocolonialism of the West upon the southern countries, or countries of the South, and African countries, developing countries. So that is already bringing in a new world order. And some of the things that they are talking about is that they could now trade in their own currencies. So these countries would not be limited to trading only in US dollars or euros, but they could also trade in their own money, so which will facilitate a faster level of growth. And a lot of these countries are also embracing China, and China doesn't interfere too much in the political running of local countries. They mainly economic influence, but they are bringing a lot of leverage. And usually, you know, when you have just one center of power, you know, power corrupts, but absolute power, when there is only one superpower or there is only one center of power in the West, I mean, which is the West, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But when there is a dichotomy, when there is a pluralism, then there is a check and balance of some sort. So the fact that there is a new world order coming up, in the sense that there are different centers of power that are coming up in the world, is a good development for the world at large, especially for the third world countries.
On a lighter note, you were quoted as saying God told you to return home. May I ask, are we expecting you home soon? Are we expecting you coming home soon? And then what will be of your interest if you arrive here?
Yes, I have a strong burden to come back to Nigeria and Africa. And my primary assignment is not to come and build church. When I was in my 40 years sojourn in Europe, my platform was church and religion. But when I come back to Africa, by the grace of God, I want to focus more on humanitarian work and on eradicating or reducing poverty and reaching out to the less privileged. I want to also try my best to influence the already established churches in Africa to be more, to pay more attention, to be more people focused, to pay more attention to ordinary people and their plight, and to be less religious, but more centers of love. So I want to encourage also industrialization of my continent and my country. I want to be able to bring a lot of Europeans to come with me and to help build and contribute to the development of Africa, just like I have contributed to the development of their countries and continent while I was here.
Okay, your church that you had in Ukraine before the invasion of Ukraine by Russia was predominantly a white congregation. What is your philosophy that endeared that kind of congregation to you?
Oh, beautiful question. What happened was that when I went there as a Christian from Nigeria, as a believer, we were taught from Nigeria that you have to evangelize, you have to preach the gospel. So, but despite all my efforts, I did it as much as I could. I tried my best. I did that. I tried different methods. But as much as I tried, I couldn't, for 4 years, I couldn't bring one white European to Christ. Europeans, my own gospel was just not affecting them. It was the only people who were coming to, I was the leader of a fellowship of students in the university, And the only people who were attracted to me, who were coming, were people from Africa, other African countries, Ghana, Liberia, other African countries, but not white Europeans. So this became a concern to me, because how could I be living in a society where 99% of the people are white Europeans, and I am only meeting with small group of black people, whereas the black people there are just 1%, or less than 1%. And 99% of the people are not reaching out to them. So it became a sort of concern to me that if God wanted me to minister to black people, He would have left me in Africa, where we have almost 1 billion of them. But here, they are not even, they are just very few. The billion people that we have here are white people. So I began to search and look for ways to reach out to them. I began to question my methods. I began to question my knowledge, and I began to question my approach. And at the end of the day, I discovered that the problem was not with the gospel. The problem was with me, with my mindset, with my worldview, with my concept of evangelism that I had brought from Africa, that it will not work here. And for me to be effective on this continent, I've got to embrace them, their culture, and I've got to embrace and be able to interpret the gospel in their own language, in their culture, in their circumstances, and be able to use their philosophy to be able to minister to them. So this is what I began to do, and God helped me in the process, and to the extent that our church became a church of 99 point something % white, and yeah, we succeeded. And now I have a lot of experience in ministering cross-culturally, to be able to minister to people of other cultures, especially to white Europeans or Americans or people like that. It's now very easy for me to do.
On a final note, just on a lighter mood, what do you miss about Africa? Could it be your favorite food in Africa, your favorite sport in Africa? What do you miss about Africa?
The greatest thing I miss about Africa, which is one of my little regrets, which is still correctable, is the fact that I can't speak my language anymore. First of all, because when I began to work on my Russian, and you don't see many people speak Yoruba here. So I just, but we're just speaking Russian all the time. The only time you see Nigerian, you want to speak English so that you don't forget English. So we're speaking Russian most of the time. But I forgot my native tongue, which was Ijebu. And I never spoke Ijebu before. I never spoke even Yoruba before I was 12. I was speaking Ijebu as my first language. That one, in fact, I was watching a television program, and as I heard somebody speaking something, and I thought, oh, is that Ondo? They said, no, that is Ijebu. I didn't even recognize it. That's number one. Number two, even Yoruba itself. In fact, 2 years or 3, maybe a few years ago, I had to ask somebody to be teaching me Yoruba language. Otherwise, I could understand it, but I couldn't even speak it. And the one time when I went to Nigeria, I could speak a little. I thought I could speak it, but when I began to speak to my mother, it was Russian language that was coming out. And the guy who was near me said, "Oh, it's Russian you are speaking." I didn't even realize it. So this is one of things that I miss. I really want to go back, try to recover at least Yoruba language. And then the food, the good thing now is that in the West these days, you can get Nigerian food or African food, thank God. So that's not a big problem anymore. But another thing that I miss strongly in Africa is the ambience, the environment, the fact that despite all the problems that you see all around, despite the chaos, you see people who are happy. In Europe and in America, where there are no problems, you could say, compared to Africa, people are in depression, people are using tablets to sleep, things are too cold here. But in Africa, despite all the problems, you still see life. I mean, I miss that. I also miss the contrast, the contrast of, I mean, so many contrasts in Africa, the colors, oh no, yeah.
Thank you very much, Sunday Adileja, founder, senior pastor of the Embassy of the Blessed Kingdom of God for All Nations, an evangelical charismatic megachurch in Kiev, Ukraine. Though the Russian invasion of Ukraine by Russia disrupted some things, but his ministry is still ongoing, and this man has authored over 400 books. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Now, about your the language issue. The good thing is that you proved your professor wrong, who actually thought at the time that you couldn't learn Russian language. Now you think in Russia, you speak Russian, that when you want to speak Yoruba, you're speaking Russia. Then another good thing is that there's an Ijebu man who can take you on some refresher course so that you can gain back the ability to speak Yoruba. This is the Ijebu man, Femi. Thank you for being with us, Sunday Adileja. And that's the show. It's been a wonderful one. Next time, when Souq Exclusive is coming your way, it's going to be another interesting guest that we'll bring to you. Thank you so much for your time. I am blessed in Aichi. Femi. They just gave you a tip of the iceberg. Now, after the report done by Juvi Ofiene, the one that talks about policy and value, let's see how this can translate to national prosperity. We had an exclusive interview yesterday with Dr. Sunday Adileja on Souq Exclusive. So let's have the interview, and that will take us to the end of Early Exchange. Many thanks for watching, but you need to see this interview. Femi.
For me, it was an eye-opening engagement with Sunday Adileja. You know, he's well-read. He's an author of over 400 books.
Yes.
And I find that to be commendable. And so I can't wait to. We're looking forward to this.
Yes, it's scintillating. So we'll leave you to watch the interview on a Souq Exclusive that we had with Dr. Sunday Adileja on policies and values and how it translates to national prosperity. Enjoy watching. Welcome to Souq Exclusive. Our guest today is Sunday Adileja, who's the founder and senior pastor of the Embassy of the Blessed Kingdom of God for All Nations, an evangelical charismatic megachurch in Kiev, Ukraine. Now, at a time where people are struggling to read, this man has authored over 400 books. That's to tell you how much he intends to pass knowledge onto people and develop them, because knowledge is power. Today, let's have Sunday Adileja as we delve into his word and also the contributions he's made to the word through evangelism and other works that he's been doing. I'm not here alone to explore the word of Sunday Adileja. Femi Ayodele is also in the studio.
He's a journalist, a writer. He authored so many books which have also blessed life and inspired a lot of young people across the world. So we're glad to have him. So let's delve into the discussion.
So what informed your decision to leave Nigeria? At what time exactly did you come to the conclusion that you needed to leave Nigeria? How has that impacted your life?
Well, I left Nigeria close to, going to about 40 years ago when I was 19. This was in the 80s. And that time, as a young graduate from secondary school, I just finished my WAEC, and I also did JAM. I got admission to the then University of Ife. I guess it's called Obafemi Awolowo University now. But even though I was living less than 2 hours away in Ogun State, I'm from Ogun State, so close to, in a village close to Ijebu-Ode. But can you believe this? I couldn't afford to even get myself a transport fare to go to collect my results from University of Ife, 2 hours away. So we were so poor, even for me to give my WAEC was a problem, where it was a relative that heard that I was not being permitted to the exam hall because I didn't pay for the WAEC form that just, came from nowhere and settled the 50 naira fee that was needed to pay for my exams. Otherwise, I would have even given the exam. So this was the situation when I was going through newspaper. Those days, you could just go through any newspaper and see advertisements of scholarships. So I was going through, I knew that there were opportunities in newspapers. So I knew that was my only chance. So every time I had an opportunity to lay my hand on newspapers, I would look for scholarships. And voila, I got one advertisement and I applied. And there were a lot of people, applying for this scholarship. For one place, we had 1,000 people. So we had 300,000 applications. They were only going to take 300 students for scholarship. So this is how I got my luck in life. And I got a scholarship to study in the former Soviet Union.
Dr. Adelaja, your story has been very inspiring to a lot of young people across the world. I would like you to talk about what do you think is responsible or the secret of your success? You are pastoring at a point in Ukraine before the war broke out, an all-white church, about 90 or 99% all-white. What will you attribute your success to, and what has been the secret over the years?
When I was growing up in my village, I used to curse and hate on my grandmother because I didn't know my father. I've never met him. And my mother, I didn't know her till I was a teenager because she had brought me back from her previous husband and dropped me with that mother and remarried. So she was married, and I was growing up with my grandmother. And she used to take me to the bush to get some firewood and then, get it arranged, put it on my head from Idomila, which was my village, to Ijebu-Ode in the morning before going to school. And then after school, the first thing was to go and fetch other set of firewood. And this was in hot sun, scorching sun of Ijebu. And so I used to curse her that, my God, why am I so unlucky in life? And why is life so difficult for me? But when I got to Russia, and my professor told me that I would never speak Russian language because without that, you would not be able to go into the university. You have to learn the Russian language 1 year before you go into the university. And he said, because I came late and I couldn't catch up with the class, he said, you will never speak this language. And I said, no, God will help me. He said, I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist. And I tell you, as your professor, you will never speak this language. If you ever do, I will become a believer. And so I said, okay, what will I do now? And I remembered that my sister had shared with me a scripture that in the book of Deuteronomy 28, verse 13, that says that you shall be the head and not the tail. You shall be you shall be first and not last. And I said, okay, so God has given me this promise. So what do I do now? So I vowed to God that I would do my best from today. I will work hard like I'd never worked hard before. And I said, after classes, I will not go to my dormitory, to my hostel. I will be going to the library. So from that day, we spent 7 hours or 6 in classes. After that 7 hours in classes, I normally will just go and take a lunch for 30 minutes, then go to the library. I will be in the library for the next 6 hours. And I did that for the next 7 years when I was in the university till I finished my master's. So I will always stay in the library. I would resist the temptation of going out. From Monday to Friday, I will spend 6 hours every day in the library. And then I became the best student of that university in their history, in their 25 years of history at that point. Why? Because of hard work. So I believed God, but I also worked hard. I think hard work is actually the womb of every success.
Wow, that's remarkable. Now, talking about believing in God.
I'm sorry. I'm going to complete my thought. So
okay,
the
ahead.
reason why I connected it to my grandmother was that this time when the professor told me I will never make it. I remember the suffering that I went through in the village, and I said, if I could survive it in Idomela, this studying in Europe in their library was like aircon. So much comfort. I've never seen this kind of comfort, even in the library or classrooms. I said, if I could survive it under the scorching sun of Africa, if I could survive it without 3 square meal, if I could survive it eating only eba and gari in all my life, this one with all this comfort. So I always refer back to my pain. My pain of the past propelled me. I will always remember that pain, and I say I will never go back to that pain. So that pain that I endured made me to endure the lesser pain. So the greater pain of poverty, the greater pain of depravity that I had back in Africa propelled me to work hard so much that even as much as I worked, it was not as serious as the pain I was going through in Africa. So I think I'm saying that just to encourage my people back out at home who are going through poverty or pain or lack of different things, scarcity, that their pain could be the greatest secret of their success in life.
Okay, taking it from there, the concept of time. Now, you looked back to where you were coming from, and that motivated you to push forward to change things about your future. Let's bring it now to Africa. What have we gone through in the past as a continent that Africa is supposed to look back at, leverage that, use it as a motivation to change the fortunes of the future?
You see, people who are in Africa and who have been privileged to know how to read, how to write, to go to school, they should see themselves as chosen people, privileged people. Because in Nigeria, for example, about 50% of our people still cannot read or write. So we who are able to read and write, we are the elite of our societies, especially those who have finished higher education, university. So we have to look at that as an opportunity to become a ladder and a bridge to our less fortunate countrymen and compatriots. So if God has given me opportunity to even be able to read, how am I using that ability to read other than for myself? Could I just organize a class for adult education for people who cannot read or write? Anything we know, we should be using, we should be sharing it with people who don't know what we know. So if I have any insight in anything, if I have any skill, why don't I use my weekends or my Saturday, my Sunday to gather young people and share the skills that I have? If we will be our brother's keepers, if we will take our time to share whatever we have with people who don't have as much near us, Africa will become a greater place rather than just waiting for the government or the president to come and resolve all our problems for us.
Africa records millions of people flocking to religious organizations, religion activities, events, church activities. Yet, our continent or society is still ravaged with corruption, impunity, and all that. Talk to us about the missing links and what can be done to fix them. Why do we have this kind of development in Africa in spite of our religious disposition?
Well, one of the greatest problems that we are facing is that we have embraced Christianity as a religion, but not as a way of life. So what we are doing is that we are going to church that's become like a culture for us now. And we go to church, and then when we go to church, we pray to God that God should come and help us resolve our problems. Well, that is why I wrote my book that you people probably have heard about, that only God can save Nigeria. No, what a myth. It's a myth to think that God will come and save Nigeria. I mean, people who don't believe in Christianity, like Saudi Arabia, Arab Emirates, Kuwait, all those are Muslim countries. They didn't wait, just pray. In America, England, Germany, France, they didn't wait for God to come and build their countries for them. They used the principles of the Bible, the principles of hard work, the principles of dignity of labor, the principles of integrity, the principles of faithfulness in little, the principles of productivity, principles of process of production. And all those principles are from the Bible. They took those principles and build them as principles to engineer them to build a better society. But what we have done is that we have taught our people to pray and to wait on God to come and do for them what they could do for themselves. It's a tragedy, actually. Religion has become our hindrances, a hurdle in our development. Unfortunately, religion is supposed to propel us, supposed to be our propeller, but it has become a hurdle in the path of our growth.
In reference to your book, The Value-Driven Nation, you are the author of that book. Taking a clue from the lessons and some of your submissions as regards the value-driven nation, I would like you to talk about how Nigeria, and by extension Africa, be a value-driven nation, and by extension Africa being a value-driven continent.
Very good question. Number one, for us to be value-driven, we must realize that values are cultivated in the homes. So government needs to develop a program, a national program that will encourage parents to teach their children the right value systems. And we have to even give them a list of the values that we want to inculcate into our family, into our children, into our future, into our society as a fabric. That's number one. We must, teach and intentionally encourage parents to inculcate values in their children. Number two, for us to be a value-driven country, we must know that our educational system must not just teach physics and biology and geography. We must begin to teach in our schools values. We must go back to the days where we used to have civic education or ethics. In Europe, they call it ethics. We must begin to teach ethics and begin to, have as a nation, we must have a list of value systems that we want to be the basis of our society and of our country as a whole. It is values that develop nations. And until we come up with those lists of values, I have developed such lists of values. In my book, Nigeria and the Leadership Questions, I enumerated all those values that Nigerians need for development. But also, apart from the schools, apart from educational system, apart from the family, another institution that is responsible for formation of values are the religious organizations. Our pulpits are responsible either for, for propagating the right values or the wrong values. There are some mosques, for example, where people are in other parts of the world, where people have used pulpit to propagate jihad. And see what people are doing. People began to go and kill themselves, and others. That is the power of pulpit. But if we are going to use that same pulpit to propagate the right values, we will be able to build a wonderful country, just like the Europeans did. In Europe, it is what they call the Protestant ethics that are responsible for the European or modern civilization that we are enjoying today. The Protestants, people like Martin Luther, people like all the other reformers, they embraced values of the Bible and brought them out of the four walls of the church and propagated them in the society as a whole. And those values that are called Protestant values are responsible for what the Europe that we see today.
Okay, we live in a time where there is so much external influence. First of all, there is the influence of the Western practice, Western culture on the African culture, and then the exposure to other way of life through social media. So how can Africa handle this? How can homes, schools, and even government handle this to shape the values of Africans to one that encouraging certain virtues that will result to nation building, or by extension, the building of Africa?
Well, the Bible says somewhere in Proverbs that teach a child in the way that he should go, and that when he's grown up, he will not depart from that path. So the foundation is very important. If the foundation we give to ourselves, our children, our families, from home and from our native nations are good, just like I referred back to the foundation of hard work that was given to me by my grandmother, it propelled me in future to success. And it never left me because it was inculcated into my system from childhood. So whatever we put into our into the foundation of character building of our children, of the society as a whole, will stand the test of time against the pressure that is coming from outside. But also, some of the values that are coming from outside are not, they are not negative always. Some of them are positive. So we should also learn to derive from the developed countries what are some of these principles that have helped them to grow and to become so developed, so that we will be able to embrace some of those as well.
As a social reformer, an author of many books, and someone who has traveled across the globe, I would like you to do a comparison of the value system in Africa to that of Europe and other continents, and what, because you talked about the value system, I would like you to do a comparison and let's see what Africa can do better.
Okay, for example, let me say that is a very good question, and I think this illustration will help me to pass my message across. The Bible says that righteousness or doing things right exalts a nation. Whenever you see a nation where people have been taught to obey rules and laws and principles, when they have been taught to obey rules, those nations are always exalted. When people have been taught to do things right, either they're Christians or non-Christians, believers or non-believers, just learn to do things right, those nations will always be developed. For example, there is a famous pastor in Nigeria that everybody knows. If I mention his name, everybody will know him. And he is the one who told this story. Maybe some people have heard this story. He was traveling from Nigeria to England through the Heathrow airport. And when he got to the airport, he was stopped. And because he had a Nigerian passport, so they were saying, "What are you coming to do in Great Britain today?" And he told them, "I'm a pastor. I'm coming to see my churches here." And they said, "Okay, if you're a pastor, yesterday was Sunday. What did you preach? What was the topic that you preached yesterday?" And he said, "Oh, I can tell you, but I'm a pastor. I cannot lie." Then the custom officer said, "Oh, you're a pastor? Yes. You cannot lie because of that?" "Yes, I'm a pastor. I cannot lie." So the woman said, it was a woman, said, "So you are telling me because you are a pastor, you will not lie or you cannot lie?" So naturally in your country where you are coming from, it means if you are not a pastor, then, you could lie. Or people who are not pastors, because they are connected to God, they could lie. But in this country that you are coming to, you don't need to be a pastor not to lie. Everybody doesn't, you are not supposed to lie. People don't lie here. And this is the difference. If you come to Africa, for example, you will see so many people who go to church. A large number of people who call themselves believers, but they could lie, they could steal, they could, all the corrupt people we are talking about, they'll go to one church or mosque or the other. But in Europe, you don't see people going to church so much. They might not go to church, but it has been imbibed in their society. Their society has been formed in such a way that truth, honesty, integrity has become part of the fabric of their country. So if we could succeed in intentionally teaching our people, everybody out of religion, that honesty is the best policy, that truth, love for truth is the path to righteousness and to elevation, then we will begin to see the rapid growth that we never anticipated. Because right now, no matter what the government does, somebody is stealing it. Even I heard that the railways that the government is building, some people are going to steal the rails. So what can you do now? Because of the lack of that vital quality, which is truth, love for truth, integrity, and righteousness in our people. Our people must learn to do things right, even if they don't go to church.
As a follow-up to that question, talking about the concept and disposition and orientation of Africans to timing or time compared to the Western world, in this part, there's a word you talk about African time or African timing. Talk to us about why this is significant, the orientation, the attitude towards time and timing. What's our conception about the issue of timing as far as African continent compared to the Western world?
You are so, either you've read some of my books or something, because this question you are asking, I wrote a whole book about it, and it's called How to Make Every African Country a First World Country. And in that book, I wrote about, I made calculations of how Nigeria's GDP could be doubled or tripled just by doing one thing, by abiding by time. Because, for example, if you take one person, let's say an average worker is making $10 an hour, just as an example, I don't know what they're making, let's say $10 an hour. And we averagely in Nigeria, everybody comes late to everywhere, at least maybe 1 hour. 1 hour goes late, 1 hour to school, goes late, 1 hour to work, goes within the whole day, 24 hours a day, our people could wait 3 hours just coming late. Now multiply that 3 hours by, if 3 hours is $10, just make it, it means $30 in a day, $30 into 26 days in a month, and then multiply that by 275 days in a year. You know, by the time I made all the calculations, the Nigeria economy, just by dealing with lateness alone, could be a $1 trillion economy. That is the importance of work, because of time. Because time is not just money, time is life, time is productivity. Time, every little, some people are producing, something in every hour. Some people are producing something in every minute, whereas we are wasting an hour going late to a place of production. And you are very correct. It's something that we must really declare war against in Africa.
Okay, as much as we must declare war on lateness in Africa and encourage timeliness, there are values that need to be encouraged or rewarded for it to become something people embrace. Because over time, people have lost these values. Some persons did not even grow up with a value. Some persons grew up with the mindset of there is African time. In fact, the only place people respect time is maybe for school or work. Outside that, African time applies. Now, you talked extensively before the time issue about honesty, certain values that should be encouraged in Africa, integrity, honesty. How can nations encourage this, reward it, so it becomes something people do? Because for those who naturally, or maybe by their upbringing, will want to be honest, but it seems that there is no reward for it. I don't know, it seems like you're foolish. So what should change at the national level and then at the continental level to encourage certain values?
Very, very, very good question. The problem with values and living by values is that, especially honesty and integrity, the problem with it is that it's not a short period kind of, it's not a short-term result. Normally when you live by values, it's in the long run, you see the result of it. But most people want to have a short-term result. They want to have a quick fix. They want to have instant gratification. And that instant gratification is our undoing. Whereas values demands endurance. Values demand stamina. They demand perseverance. And it is only after that that you are normally rewarded. But really, at the end of the day, you know, if you are my customer and you come to buy things from me, I always sell it for you higher than the normal price, or I normally reduce something, take from it, and you get a smaller weight instead of the original weight. One day, that deception will come back to bite me, because you will realize that I've been deceiving you. And once you realize, once the truth comes out, you will tell your friends, I will not just lose you, I will lose all your family members, I will lose all the people you know, who you will tell that I'm a shit. So in that case, on the other hand, I've been a person of integrity. I've always been doing, selling things at the right price. I've always been giving you the right weight. I've always been, then you will say, okay, go to that other person, because that other shop is where the person is a man of integrity. He never cheats. So it takes time for integrity to play out. But at the end of the day, people who live by any other values other than the value of honesty, integrity, and truth, they always lose out. But if there is no fix, there is no quick fix to it. It takes perseverance, and the only way to make people to embrace this is to teach it and enforce it from childhood. For example, another problem in Nigeria is that no matter the offense, people always find a way to look to avoid punishment. So this is a big problem. I will tell you a story, a small problem that will help me to communicate this my lesson. When I was a student in Russia, I went to Germany on holiday, and then we, in Nigeria, we never obey the traffic light. So I saw that it was red, the traffic light was red, but I and my friend, we were thinking, but there is no car now, no car here, no car to the right, no car to the left. We just say, okay, let's cross. From nowhere, we saw police come and stop us. I said, where they come from? We didn't see them. Anyway, they told us we have to pay 10 euros. It used to be mark in those days, let's say euro. 10 euro penalty. So we said, oh, sorry, because in Nigeria, we're used to the fact that, I'm sorry for that, is ambulance passing by. So we're used to the fact that if you offend in something, just beg the authority and they will pity you. They will have mercy. So we say, oh, please, please, please. We are students. We are from Russia. We don't have 10 euros. They said, no, pay now. We said, no, please. Can we pay? Oh, please forgive us. They said, okay, 20 euros. We said, 20 euros. But please, now, no, we don't have, please, for the 30 euros. No, 20, 40 euros. No, 40 euros. 50 euro. If you talk again, it will keep on going. That is how we ended up paying 50 euro issue. From saying we don't have to, because they have a system that enforces the right things, enforces righteousness, that upholds justice, equity, and uprightness. So, but in Nigeria, even if somebody would have come, other people would say, oh, pity him now, oh, leave him alone now. The parents will come and say, oh, let him go. Even recently, some members of parliament will be coming to intercede for the person who is doing the wrong thing. Ministers will be calling to say, so we have a whole means of bypassing the law, of bypassing what is right, until we begin to enforce righteousness by force. Just like when you go to Singapore. In Singapore, everything attracts penalty.
All
So
right, Dr.
penalty
Adelaja.
must be established for things to work in our country.
All right, Dr. Adelaja. The conversation with Dr. Adelaja still continues, but we'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll have more conversation with our special guest. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us on the issue of policy and value, as we've been talking with Dr. Sunday Adilaja, who's been talking extensively about policy and value and how Africa can achieve that. All right, Dr. Sunday Adilaja, we do know that there was a time when there was a kind of communal mentorship for children. A child doesn't belong to a particular family, the child belongs to the entire community. Is there a way to return to that kind of system where correction of a child is not left alone to the parents? A child could do something wrong and somebody from the community is correcting the child and even going as far as enforcing some form of punishment just to deter the child from returning to such behavior. What is the way to go in a time like this about that?
Thank you so much. With that attitude, practice was popular back in Africa in those days when people had what is called taboos, when people had the things that are accepted by the community as a whole and the things that are not accepted. If we could go back to that, it will really help us a big deal. But unfortunately, before we could go back to that successfully, something must happen. We must collectively dethrone the reign of money, the supremacy of money in our society. Because right now, it's like anybody that has money becomes the authority right now in our culture. In the olden days, it used to be you respect your elders, and the rules, the accepted norms of the society take preeminence over money or any status that anybody might have. Let me tell you a story that to help bring this point home. I have a friend of mine who is a professor. He's from the eastern part of Nigeria, and because he's over 60 and he's now the eldest in his family, in his clan. So when they were having a family meeting, and he was suggesting something. He's a professor from America, but a very educated guy. And but he was making some points to his crownspeople. While he was talking, one young man, this man is about 65, but there was a young man there who was just only 27 or 28 years old, who came, he just stopped there and said, "Hey, you call yourself a professor? And you are just talking grammar. Now English in your shop, and just put 10,000 US dollar cash on the table and say, this is money. This is what will resolve the issue. You are talking some principles, something. This is money. This is out." And the elders, when I was growing up in Nigeria, if anybody would have done that in the village, they would have banished that person from the village. But now, those elders who are sitting, the so-called elders who are sitting there, what they said is that, professor, you see, this is a young man. And you see, it is money that talks these days. You see, he brought solution. Money is the solution. And you are just talking. So we have got to do what the young man is saying because he has brought the money. You see, until we dethrone the supremacy of money, the love for money in our society, that thing will not work that you are talking about. We must go back, first of all, to let people know that some things are more important than money. And those things are values and virtues. Those things are principles. Those things are righteousness. Those principles that are should be much more respected. Character, they should be much more respected. Honesty, they should be much more respected than money. When that is an acceptable norm among our people, when everybody understands that things like character, principles, honesty, truth are more important than money, then every other person that is doing wrong, the whole community will be able to say, no, you are going against the norms. You are going against the principle that we have all agreed to abide by. And that is when the community can contribute to building a healthy society. So we still go back to, letting everybody be informed about what is right and what is wrong. But money has become our impediment that we must remove as a big major problem in our society.
There's this popular quote by G.F. Kennedy, ask what you can do for your country. How do we drive home this kind of message to change the narrative and the mindset in Africa?
Oh, beautiful. This is a principle that I will tell you that is not very popular in our society, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I grew up in Nigeria, and I was in Nigeria till I was 19, and I finished secondary school in Nigeria. But I never heard any teaching, training, preaching on responsibility. I never heard it. The first time I heard the word, I knew the word responsibility, but I never related it to myself as an individual. When I was in Africa, I thought responsibility is only something for leaders. But the first time I really heard the word about responsibility, I mean, the real meaning of responsibility was after I came to Europe. And so this, what we are talking about and what J.F. Kennedy was talking about is responsibility of every individual before their society. And this is one thing that we hardly teach. When you go back to our people, unfortunately, what we normally, even our elites, what they talk about, go to any normal TV program in Nigeria, they will be telling you what the government is not doing, what the government is supposed to do, what the leaders are supposed to do. But very few of them talk about personal responsibility of every citizen before their society. Every one of us hold the duty to be responsible for our neighbors, to be responsible for our families, to be responsible for the land that we live on, to be responsible for people around us, be responsible to our nation. And those kind of things, we need to begin to talk about it. And people like you in the media, you are also responsible for formulating and propagating the right values in the society, including the value of responsibility.
Now let's expand the scope of that conversation. If people are not to think about what their country would do for them, but rather think of what they can do for their country, how does the country celebrate its heroes and those who have contributed to its development to inspire more people to think of contributing to the nation? Take Nigeria, for instance.
Well, sorry?
Let's use Nigeria as a case study.
Okay. For example, in Nigeria, like many other countries, there are national honors, merits, and medals that they give to encourage people who have contributed to the development of Nigeria. And the same thing happens everywhere. But when you go to a place like America, for example, they don't wait till you get national honor or national merit before you are celebrated. Every community has a way, and it's a whole system of celebrating people who have excelled in that community. Every little town, every little village, every local government, every state also hold events celebrating people who are doing the right thing. And you are very correct. This is one of the ways where we could really propagate these right values, by celebrating those people who are doing the right thing. And we should not just wait until the government does this once in a year, but we should be having such events of celebrating and honoring people who do the right thing every day. Every day there must be some honor somewhere. But the people that we see right now that are being celebrated are people maybe who are in Nollywood, or who are in politics, or who are in sports. And maybe somebody who funds a lost bag of money and brought it. But we must celebrate the little things people do in every sphere of life. That will really contribute to making our country more healthy.
Okay, still in that, we find that when nationally people who have contributed to the country want to be celebrated, sometimes it is done posthumously after they die. That's when a posthumous award is given. How can we correct that too? Timeliness of award.
That's very sad. Unfortunately, that happens a lot. And I think, this is a tradition of celebrating people when they are dead, because unfortunately, we see ourselves as competitors when we're alive. A lot of people who are celebrating people who are dead is because they now see that they cannot compete with them anymore. He's gone, and there is nothing to be afraid of about him. But while he's here, he's like he's an opposition to some people, or a competitor to some people. So But when we realize that the nation is more important and the success of the nation is even much more important, then anybody that contributes to that nation, when we love our country, when the love for the nation is preeminent in our heart, then we'll be able to see that anybody that does anything good for the nation has to attract the encouragement from every one of us.
I'll keep making reference to your books because they are quite relevant. This particular on church shift, you made some submissions, and I would like you to talk about the role of churches or the role of church leaders in nation building and then helping to restore the value system in the society.
I always thank you very much. In that book that you are talking about, I was talking about my shock after living in Europe for close to 40 years, going back to Nigeria and seeing that, for example, I was going to a big church where I was invited to. This church, I think the budget of that church is bigger than the budget of that state. I mean, the church is wealthy, rich. But then when you go into the premises and they have a whole big place there, it's like a whole country, a city, and everything is perfect, working perfectly like in America or like in Europe. But then to get to that place, the street that takes you to that church it was in such a mess, such a horrible state that it doesn't take 1%, or it doesn't even take 0.1% of their budget to fix that road. So I decided to challenge my colleagues, my pastor friends about that and say, you fix the road. So they were telling me, no, the road is for the government, it's the responsibility of federal government, that one is for the state, that one. You see, this is because egocentrism, selfishness, religion has embraced selfishness instead of giving love, instead of loving kindness. If you care about people at all, even your own people that has to pass through that road to come to your church, if we understand love, we will know that, no, this is something that we have to do. Apart from that, I also raised another question with the leadership of that church, because just around that same church, outside of it, when you come out of, they have a fence. When you get out of this church, just around the fence of the church, you will see all kind of shanties and huts and very horrible sights of people living in poverty. Some selling this, some selling some petty things. And I say, hey, why don't the church take responsibility for all these people? You will be shocked by the response. The teacher told me, the pastor told me, well, God is making a difference between the Christians and non-believers. That when you come in here to the church, you see the way God has blessed us. But those ones, if they want God to bless them, they will come and join the church also, because God is making a difference between those who worship him and those who don't worship him. But I said, but God, Jesus himself left heaven where everything was perfect, came to the earth to rescue us who are wretched. I mean, we are supposed to leave our comfort zone, our own churches, and go to those people, even if they will never accept our religion, even if they will never believe in Jesus Christ or Islam. We should go to them and reach out to them with the love of God. This is why Jesus died for us while we were yet sinners. So, to a large extent, the churches and mosques of our country have a long way to go and a lot to contribute to economic development and the general national transformation of our country. That's why I wrote that book, Church Shift, because church must shift its position. The church must shift its worldview. The church must shift its practices. For example, I was telling them, okay, let's go and arrange and give, arrange a scholarship for those children who are not coming to your church, or give food to those people outside. So they were telling me, well, you don't give to the poor so that you don't become poor. If you want to be rich, if you want to be blessed, you give to somebody who is already blessed. So we don't give to all those people who are already poor. We don't want to attract poverty. This is the kind of doctrine, I don't know where that comes from. Because if the European missionaries who brought Christianity to Africa, if they had not built schools, if they had not built hospitals, if they had not educated us, if they had said that, no, we are unbelievers and we will bring curses upon them, Africa would have been in darkness up to now. So the form of Christianity that is being practiced in our country today breaks my heart. That is the reason for that book, Church Shift.
Okay, still on church shift, there is an argument that the poor will always be with us. An example that those who propose this argument is that of Jesus in the Bible, when he was being anointed with oil from the alabaster box. And then Judas made a suggestion of selling and using the proceeds to take care of the poor. And then he said, the poor will always be with you. So that seems to be like a reference. Why some churches or some people would say the church is not supposed to take care of the poor with church money, because the poor will always be with you. Rather, church should use the money to take care of church and probably propagate the gospel, talking about outreaches. And there is also the thing about principles of prosperity, that to prosper, you must give. What is the balance between these two?
Well, most of the people tell you that the way to prosperity is to bring money. They will always tell you that you bring that money, you must bring it to the church, or you must bring it to the man of God. Well, if you put one and one together or two and two together, you will discover that if anybody who is giving money to the pastor or to the church, at the end of the day, the only person who is going to get blessed and prospered at the end of the day is not you who the money is leaving his hand. It is the person, the pastor, who is collecting from 1,000, 2,000 people, who is going to be prospered. So it is deception. Anybody who says that the way for you to come to prosperity is by giving to the church or to the pastor is a crook, is a scam. Those are fraudsters and scammers. But then let's talk about what you said, that the poor will always be with you. Yes, but what Jesus was saying in that, if to paraphrase him in that phrase, is that he said, let this woman use the alabaster oil for me right now, because I will not always be here. But you will always have the poor people around you to do good to. So me, I will be here for a short time. I will not be here. But the poor people, you have opportunity to take care of them every day. So he is not saying that we shouldn't take care of poor people. He is saying that we have all the rest of our life to care for this kind of people. Now, but those people who say that as well don't tell you the practice of the church in the New Testament. And the practice of the church in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, is that the people who brought tithes, offering, and all their whatever they have to give, who brought it to the church, the Bible says that they laid all those things at the feet of the apostles. And the Bible also said that the apostles never took those things to their pocket. They never used it to buy jets or buy houses or build universities that other people cannot pay for. What did they do with all those tithes and offering that people brought to the church? The Bible said that they distributed to all the needy people, both Christians and unbelievers who are coming to the church. They distributed all the things that people are normally bringing, the tithe and offering, such that there was nobody who lacked. There was none that lacked. None that lacked. Nobody lacked as a result of the charity efforts of the church. So this is what the church is supposed to be about. If the church is supposed to make sure that all the needs of the people, not just in their church, but in their environment and community, are met through the free will offering of those people who can afford it. So that's what I tell my people here in Europe or in Africa, people who listen to me. I tell them, if you don't see what your church is using your tithe and offering for, if you don't see the needy they are taking care of, if you don't see the widows and the orphans that are taken care of, if you don't see the alcoholic and the drug addicts and other people that they are taking care of with your money, don't give money to that church anymore. Use your tithe. You have to give your tithe or offering. You still have to give something from your pocket, because if you stop giving and you only keep everything that you have to yourself, you don't have those things. You don't possess those things. Those things possess you. The principle of tithe is that we shouldn't eat everything. We shouldn't allow things to possess us, but we should always share from what we have. So take your tithe, take your offering, go and look for the needy in your community. Go back to your village, and every month and look for all the widows there. Look for the orphans there. Look for the old people there, and use your tithe and offering to directly minister to them. This is what Deuteronomy says about tithe and offering. Tithe and offering is for orphans, is for widows, is for strangers, it's for the needy and the poor in the society. So, but people only brought them to church so that church will help them to take care and distribute and take care of the needs of the society. But if you don't see what the church is doing with your money, take your money and look yourself with your own eyes. Look for your relatives that are in need. Look for your village people that are in need. Maybe your brothers and sisters cannot even afford.
Well, Supporters Club had been there for 66 years when it was founded officially, but those who funded it were just doing it for the fun. We just come to the field, drum, sing and go. Nobody gave them any recognition. But I joined them in the year 1977. Well, I paid 2 naira to join. And how did I join? It was because of an incident that happened at the National Stadium. The Shooting Stars of Ibadan and the Bendel Insurance of Benin were playing the semi-final of the FA competition that year. And I had to go to enter the stadium. I paid 4 naira to watch the game. But while entering the stadium, the whole place was filled. And when I got inside, there was no place for me to sit down. So many of us were standing out there, people outside the gate of the stadium. There were more than the people right inside. So as at a point in time, while standing, some people just took me off ground and threw me into the crowd. And I started rolling until I landed on the culvert, concrete. Concrete slab. Before I knew it, over 50 people were on my top. And I could no longer breathe. So to me that day, it appeared I was going to die. But through the grace of God, I was able to wriggle out myself of that position. And the man directly on top of me had to leave, because what I did was by biting him. And I had to struggle to go under the concrete slab. And I was right there for the first half of the game, 45 minutes. I was right there under the concrete slab. I couldn't watch the game. It was the breeze that was coming from the outer part of the stadium that saved the situation. After the first half, you know, people will get up to go to the toilets to go and buy drinks and meet their friends. I had the opportunity of coming out, and a good Samaritan gave me a small place to sit. Even at that, I was very unconscious. I was not comfortable. But the game ended. It was a drawn game. When the game ended, everybody left the stadium. But because I wasn't very comfortable, I had to wait in the stadium for like an hour and a half before I left. So when I left and I got home, 9 p.m. network news, breaking news. 32 people died in the stadium that day. And that, the thought came to me. I probably could have been one of them. But I thank God. That was what informed my decision to say, I will not go to the stadium again until I have the best way to go into the stadium without being killed, maimed, or injured. And I decided to move with those people, and I joined them. But then we were just doing it. Maybe 20 of us, 15, 30 of us, we meet under the trees of the National Stadium, and we go home. And since that period, immediately I became a member. I introduced what they call flag bearing. When from 1977 to 1990, every Nigerian team that came out of the tunnel or goes out there outside Nigeria to play, you will see the Nigerian green, white, green flag being carried by one person. It's me. I did that flag bearing for 13 whole years. Whenever the team is played, I will be there with them, whether it's the Super Eagles, the under 20, the under 23, the Falcons, and the rest, all our national teams. Even our club sides going out to play Continental. When you see the green, white, green of Nigeria, I used to be the one carrying that flag. So I was with them, and I rose within the ranks from being an assistant secretary to becoming the national secretary and also the chairman of the disciplinary panel of the Nigerian Football Supporters Club. And by 1990, I was voted to be the chairman. That was when the thoughts of registering the club came. So when you hear that the Nigerian Football Supporters Club founder, officially because of its registration, I did the registration. Registering the club, I moved it from Lagos to Ibadan, Oyo State. I'm an Ibadan man. Charity begins at home, they say. So I went to Ibadan. From Ibadan, I moved to Bauchi. I moved to Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, all the states of the Federation. By 1992, I went to Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan precisely, to launch the Supporters Club. I went there physically, bringing the Nigerians together, those living in Abidjan. I formed the Supporters Club and launched it officially. I left that place, I went to Ghana. I launched it in Ghana. Leaving Ghana, I went to Gambia. I went to Burkina Faso. I went to Mali. I went to Republic of Benin. I went to Togo. I went to all the countries of Africa, putting the Supporters Club in place in those countries. By 1995, I moved to the United States of America. I launched the Supporters Club at the Giant Sports Stadium in New Jersey in 1995. After that, I went to France in 1997. to launch the supporters club in France in 1997 because we were already thinking of going to France to play in the World Cup. And if the Super Eagles will not have enough supporters there, what will happen to them? Don't forget that I led the supporters club to the United States of America for the very first time we played in the World Cup in 1994. I was at the Copa America in 1995. That was when I had the opportunity of launching the supporters club in America. In 1996, I led the supporters club to Atlanta in 96. And the winning of the trophy, the gold in football event, made possible by the supporters club, support of the supporters club. Because when you listen, when that match, you remember that we played a match with Brazil in the preliminary stage and we lost 1-0. But we had the opportunity again to meet them during the semi-final. And during the semi-final, Brazil had given us 3 goals. We were trailing 1-3 at the interval. And when the second half came up, we were given a penalty, I think 25 minutes to the end of the game. One of our players, I don't want to mention the name, but he knows, he lost that penalty kick. That was when God told me, sing this song. It's a miracle working God. It's a miracle working God. He's the Alpha and Omega. He's a miracle working God. Of course, my members chorused. Indeed, miracle came. We scored the second goal. And the then Minister of Sports, Chief Jim Nwobodo, came to our stand and said, Ladipo, I heard you guys singing, it's a miracle working God. It's like God is going to make a miracle to happen today. I said, yes. And we continued. I changed the song. I have a Father who never fails. I have a Father who never fails. I have a Father who never fails. Who never fails. Who never fails. Forevermore. Amen. Jesus never failed. Amen. Jesus never failed. Amen. Jesus never failed. Jesus never failed. Jesus never failed. Forevermore. We scored the third goal. Then another song came. Boya chukuna gaza. Boya chukuna gaza mere. Messiah yobiuma. Boya chukuna gaza. The match ended and there was to be the extra time. And that time it was a sudden death rule. Immediately I sang that song, my people chorused. And the ball was coming to Kanun Wakwo. He was backing the goalkeeper. Chested the ball, raised it up, turned around and tapped it to the net. And that was the 4 goals the Nigerian team scored against Brazil. And they started crying. And I decided to form another song. When Nigeria beat Brazil, when Nigeria beat Brazil, oh, Bebeto start to cry. When Nigeria beat Brazil, why Bebeto? Because they pulled him out. They were thinking they were reserving him because they thought they would meet Argentina in the final. Unknowingly to them, that they will be beaten, they don't know. So I did that song, and we sailed into the final, meeting Argentina in the final. And that again happened. Argentina was leading us 2-1, but we came from 1-2 to beat them 3-2. Yeah, to answer your question, I did that to tell you what the supporters club is to the team, and what this man felt by registering the club is that I have that belief, and it is general, everybody must have it, that this is Nigeria, it's our country. We have to do something by giving it a positive image, whether in Nigeria or outside. You do know that all of us cannot be Mr. President of Nigeria. All of us cannot be governors, and not all of us will be members of the National Assembly. But all of us as Nigerians have special roles to play in giving our country a befitting and positive image. That is the reason why this man has been following football supportership all the time to date. Well, I want to tell you, like I said earlier on, the grace of God has been the secret. The other secret is that my members, I get them reoriented to believe in my vision. All of them supports what I was doing. They all love this country. They want to contribute their own to the good name of Nigeria. That has been the secret. And don't forget, any member of the supporters club should be referred to as a patron par excellence, because they are not paid. They are not giving any allowance. They use their time, their money, even at the risk of their lives, to support the cause of Nigeria through supportership. Well, majorly, it is funding. The challenges is funding, because if you have to support the team, yes, they are playing in Lagos, you may not spend much money. But when they are playing in Enugu, they are playing in Uyo, they are playing in Abuja, you need money, no matter how. But come to think of you traveling with 100, 200, 300, 600 supporters outside Nigeria. They will not go by road. They will go by air. It's a lot of money that we need in running the supporters club. So our main challenges has been that of funding. But I can assure you that God has been good to us. We have had some philanthropists, some organizations who have come to assist us by way of supporting us, giving us a lot of money. And if you will not mind, I will have to put it on record that the very first company that supported Supporters Club was Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola did it for 2 years. They could no longer do it. Then for 1 year, MTN did it. They could no longer sustain it. But later we got Globacom. Dr. Mike Adenuga Jr. has been the brain, the backbone, the sponsor and the financier of the Supporters Club for several years, doling out millions from 50 to 60 to 100 million of naira, and even in dollars. So that has been the way, that has been how we have been able to surmount it. We have some philanthropists. We have Taiwo Afolabi, who has always supported us whenever we are going out. I remember Alhaji Aliko Dangote in 1996. He supported us, and some other Nigerians too. Esther Ajayi, when we were going to Russia 2018, I went to this woman and I told her our problems. The second day, she was able to give us 20 million. I went to meet the then governor of Lagos State, His Excellency Governor Ambode, he gave me 10 million. The club, not me per se, he gave the club. And when we were going to Brazil in 2014, that was the very first time any government supported us. We went to Brazil. Before going, I visited the then president, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. After decorating him as our patron, he pronounced a 50 million naira grant for us to go to Brazil. Actually, we were going to request from him a whole plane to take us there because we were going for a national assignment. Supporters Club is a selfless service. But the president gave us 50 million. I mean, good luck, Jonathan. But we ended up spending 189 million. The difference of that was raised by me going to Dr. Mike Adenuga, Taiwo Afolabi, Esther Ajayi, Ambode, and the rest. That's how we've been running the club. We've been running the club, meeting people who lost the game of football, who lost Nigeria, and they have been helping us. Well, very, very unfortunate. It's a story I hate to be talking about all the time because I've said many things about it more than 100 times. Supporters Club had been there for several years. And Dr. Rafiu Ladipo was the national chairman for just 10 years, from 1990 to 2000. I left that position in 2000. And then somebody else became the national chairman. And that was Alhaji Waide Anderile Yusuf, who was the chairman for 8 good years. After him, there was Otumba Olatunde Bashorun. He was there for 4 years. And there came a time when one Mr. Vincent Okumagba acted in that capacity for 3.5 years. And there was one little mistake, misunderstanding, because people will not want to wait for their time. And all I told them is, please go through an election. Anybody who would not want to go through an election is not supposed to be on that chair of the national chairman. That's what came up. And the then NFF believed that there could be 20 arms of supporters clubs in Nigeria. It could even run to 100 units. But it's unhealthy. You cannot have a situation where your team is playing right on the field and you have different corners where you have the Nigerian supporters scattered all over the field, singing in different voices. It's not good. But look, I've been able to manage it because God has told me that supporters must not die. Supporters Club will not die. I have to be patient to let them see reasons why the Supporters Club should go and support the teams with unity. As a unit, go and support the team. But if you have funded your own, maybe you have registered your own, you have your own office, you can stay in your office. Manage your office the way you want to manage it. But when it becomes a national assignment, you are going out to represent Nigeria. All of us as supporters must come together to support Nigeria as a group supporting one team. Not when you have some people in Angle 90, some people in Angle 180, some people in Angle 360, some people in Angle 60, supporting one team. It does not augur well. There's nothing you are going to achieve from this. I remember when we were in Russia, and my members have gone in. I normally wait for all of them to go in before I will finally go in. So when I was going in as the last person, I entered the stadium and I saw them, some people up there, I saw some people on the left, I saw some people on the right. And when I was going to meet the band boys, some of their security men came to me, in Russia, and asked me where I was going. I said I was going to meet my people. They said I should bring my ticket. And when they saw the ticket, no, you can't go there, go there. That place is not yours. Your seat is downstairs there. How do I coordinate the activities of my members? This is what we've been telling them. Supporters Club must be united. They must come together, sing together, cheer the team together, and let us have a befitting result. When the referee and all the match officials see a group of people, even if you are 200 or 300, converging in one special place together, in your uniforms, in your green and white, and you are singing, they know you have come to support your team. So it takes them every reason to want to do the game better. Well, you are not there. In a capacity crowd of 90,000, we had 5 supporters here, 2 there, 7 there. When the Argentines were about 87,000 in the field, singing for their team. So I believe that the Supporters Club must be together. I've been able to manage it now, up to now. The national chairman of the Supporters Club as we speak is Reverend Samuel Ikpeya. He coordinates the activities of the Supporters Club in Nigeria. While worldwide, I'm the President General because we have Supporters Club in all the other countries of the world. And when we come together, there must be one person. There must be the head. We have the president of the Supporters Club in Cote d'Ivoire. We have the chairman of the Supporters Club in UK. In all Francophone countries, the head of the Supporters Club is called president. In Anglophone countries, the head of Supporters Club is addressed as Mr. Chairman. So the President General is not just what we just came out with. It's because there's a need for it. That's why the President General worldwide comes up. Well, I have told you a lot of people don't want to wait for their time. And when you don't wait for your time, what do you lose? You lose much. There was going to be an election. And I called all of them, go and pick your nomination papers for the election. But some of them would not want to because they want appointments. And I don't believe in appointments because we have a constitution in the Supporters Club that says everybody and anybody who wants to be an officer must contest for election. I insisted that there must be an election. Some people would not want an election because they know, probably they believe they cannot win. They decided to say, oh, let's go our way because we don't want election. That's it. Before now, up to about 8 years, 10 years ago, the Super Eagles were really super. But in the last 8 years, we have not been there. We have not been doing well. Don't forget that in 1994, Nigeria's team, the Super Eagles, were judged to be the 5th best in the world. What is our ranking now? 37th in the world. Even in Africa, what is our ranking? So the Eagles of the last 8, 9 years ago, no, they have not done well at all. I want anybody to tell me what did we win in the last 8, 9 years. Don't forget that in 1980, we won the Cup of Nations right here at the National Stadium. In 1994, we were in Tunisia. We won it. In 2013, we were in South Africa. We won the Cup of Nations. In 1996, we won the Atlanta Olympics. Since then, what can we point to that we have won? So the Eagles of the last 8, 9 years, no. They did their best, but their best was not good enough for Nigeria. And that's why we didn't win nothing. But I want to believe that the present crop of Eagles being put together now going for the Cup of Nations, we want to write their names in gold. And if that is so, it means they have to put in their best to see that going to Cote d'Ivoire 2024 will not just be going there to make a number. We're going there to give a very good account of ourselves. Who says it is not possible for Nigeria to win the Cup of Nations again? It is possible, but it takes a determined group of people as players who wants to write their names in gold to do that. When you are rating the coach, a coach is as good as his last match. Pasero was employed, he was given a target, and the NFF has the power to either sack or renew his contract. I think according to them, maybe he has performed according to what they want. But for me, as a Nigerian, I want Pasero to go to Cote d'Ivoire and show us that he is serious and show us that the Super Eagles can still fly and make us get minimally play in the semi-final of the Cup of Nations. Anything short of that, no. Well, I want to believe that our Nigerian coaches are good. There have been 2 or 3 foreign coaches that have done well. Westhoff, Bonfrejo, and this which doctor, what's his name again? I'll remember his name. This guy qualified us to play in the World Cup with a match to go. The witch doctor. Well, the witch coach, we call him, we remember it, now it will come back. So, since then, there's no foreign coach that has done better. I was one of the people that went to London to recruit this man I'm talking about. When we recruited him, he came to Nigeria and he made us to qualify for the World Cup with a match still to go. Philippe Trouze. I was there in England where we interviewed him. Well, since then, it has been one coach coming to take our money, not giving a very good account of us, of himself. But the Nigerian coaches, let's also praise some of them. Some of them. The late Shuaibu Amadu qualified us to play in the World Cup, even though he did not take us there. The late Stephen Keshi also made us to win the Cup of Nations of 2013 in South Africa. So if that happens, who says the Nigerian coaches are not good? Some Nigerian coaches have proved themselves, but they still need to do more. But these 2 coaches, exceptional. That is the real reason, the real controversy we're having between the NFF and the coaches. You don't hire a coach if you know you cannot pay his wages. You must be ready to pay his salary as at when due. There's no coach who will labor and labor, and after which he would have trained your players, and you are owing him salaries of 5 months, 7 months. Which coach will take that? Where is that happening across the world? Nobody will accept that. So that has to be looked into. And that is why the NFF has got to look for serious sponsors and raise funds for them to be self-sufficient, to be able to take all these challenges of paying the coaches wages. That is a big problem. And I think the present NFF board, led by Ibrahim Guzo, will look into that look for sponsors, serious sponsors who are interested, not just interested, but who are genuinely interested in the Nigerian game and in the Nigerian nation. You may be interested in the Nigerian game, but if you are not interested in the Nigerian game, Nigerian nation, you may not give what it takes to do. You must have the love of this country at heart, and then love the game also. The last 15, 10, 8 years, our boxing went down. In the last 5 years to today, our boxing has come up. I am the president of the Nigerian Boxing Board of Control, and I confirm to you that every week now, we have a boxing championship. We had one last week. Tomorrow, we will have one in Abuja. When I come back the following week, there's another one. We have promoters now promoting our boxing events. And our boxers are now earning big money other than what they were earning before. In those days, they were earning 20, 30,000. They go on the ring, they hit them, they shed blood, and they sweat. What do they earn? But since the last 3, 4 years, our boxers have been earning big money. Some of them earning millions. Some of them traveling abroad to earn $5,000, $10,000. And that is made possible because we have a group of people in the Nigerian Boxing Board of Control who respects each other, who respect the boxers, who respects the coaches, and who respects the promoters. Take, for instance, I'm sorry to mention, GoTV. GoTV night every day, they've had about 29 GoTV sessions. You know what that means? GoTV for every boxing fight. They don't spend less than 20 million. They even spend more. And our boxing now is being watched all over the world, if not just Africa. A lot of things have been said about this. We have sent memos, we have sent advice, we have met with the people in charge severally. I've had to write to put the Minister of Sports, the National Assembly, and the rest. How can we develop our sports? It's very important. Without grassroots development, you won't be there. As a matter of fact, Kanu Nwankwo happens to be a product of the Nigerian League. J.J. Okocha, product of Nigerian League. Finidi George, Emmanuel Amunike, and all of them played in the Nigerian League. How many of our Super Eagles players, those that are playing for us now, do you see what developed here? Maybe you have 2 or 3 home-based players playing. But the real product for our football development, they are here in Nigeria. We have to go back to those things we were doing that time when we got the likes of the Segun Odegbami, Henry Nwosu, Christian Chukwu, down to Stephen Keshi, Okocha, and the rest. We have to go back. We don't have to rely on those players who have been serving us in the last 12, 15 years, believing that they will continue to serve us the same way. No matter what you do, players will get weak. They will age. And when they are aging, that's when they start referring to them as tiring legs. You need replacements for them. How do you get that? You can only get them from the local scenes. We have various clubs in Nigeria playing the leagues, the Premiership, the National League, and the rest. 20 teams in one. Do you know how many of our boys out there that can play football if we harness them, bring them together, and give them the right training. Of course, let me ask you, how many of our club sites have feeder teams? Feeder teams, they are very important to the development of the game. When you have a junior player playing the feeder team and is maturing, bring him to replace a tiring leg. In the senior team, how many of those teams that we have can boast of feeder teams? How many of them can boast of their own fields? Perhaps we have about 3 clubs that are privately owned. But others are owned by governments, state governments. And state governments, what do they use them for? For political gains. And if it is political gains, well, it's off it. Let's do football like it is done elsewhere. Football is big business. People are making billions of dollars in football. Nigeria can do same. If we do same, we will take off all this nonsense. The boys going about doing a lot of violence, going to do yahoo, going to do kidnapping and the rest. You will have all of them looking forward to becoming millionaires and billionaires in future, and of course becoming employers of labor apart from fending for their families. Above 50 football. Yeah, it's above 50. I'm the chairman worldwide for that. And my president is Ambassador Edward Olutoke, who has given his support, his finances to be able to do this game. The thing is this: if you have played football, you have played up to the level that you are about 40, and you are no longer playing, you are no longer doing what you know how best to do, you now go and sit down, not doing nothing. Boredom sets in. And within that period, rather than getting fit, you are aging. Some of them developing sickness, various sicknesses that they ought not to have. But because they were no longer doing what they know how best to do, they sit down. So the concept is bringing them back. Not just the footballers, but anybody above 50 who play football, keeping fit, and above all, living a standard life, making money. There's a way, we have one thing we are developing with the above 50 concept for you to make money. Anybody who is above 50 and has no car of ease or no house of ease or a home has not been living standard. So above 50 concept is not just to play football alone, but to help you to keep fit, to keep you healthy, and make you to live standard life and make money. That is what we are doing. And as I speak with you, Brazil has embraced it. Mexico has written to us that they will want to play with us. The last competition we had 8 clubs. Ajegule, Surulere, Redeem, Itiraikate, Abeokuta, all of them, they came to play at the National Stadium. And the prize, the winner's prize was 5 million, which was paid instantly. The second place was 2 million, while the top place was 1 million. And we put a lot of money in organizing that. We are going to start the second edition very soon. We are now having clubs from Benin, Edo, where people from Abuja, people from Kwara registering to be part of the above 50 football. How much do they put into sports? What you have in sports is noise. How much money do they put into sports? They need more money to run sports, particularly the development of the sports, not just taking part in competitions, Because if you have to develop sports, it takes a lot of money. And all those successful countries doing sports, it's because they have put money into its development. So government has got to put more money into the development of sports. Fantastic women. They've done us proud severally. Having been champions of Africa for 9 times. I don't think any country in Africa can boast of that. But beyond that, we should also realize that these ladies, they are getting old. Some of them are 40, 38, 36, down the ladder. You need replacements for them. That is why we're asking that we should put more money, we should put more focus in the development of sports, both male and female. I think with what the female national team has done for Nigeria, we owe it a duty to put more money into the development of female football. I'm not thinking about that. If I want to, I would have been in politics, party politics. I would have been there, and by now I think I would have been something else. But no, I chose to be part of giving an image to Nigeria, a good image, positive one. Take for instance, if you go out of the country, you get to the entry point of any country, and you speak of our sports, they give you a wide latitude for you to go in. Well, you say when you get there, you speak sports. They ask you, where's Kano? Where's Okocha? Where's Finidi? Where's Amokachi? That means they recognize Nigeria sports. In fact, that's the only thing we can be proud of right now. Every other thing we talk in diversities. But when it comes to sports, every one of us were together. If the Nigerian team is playing and a Christian has to pray, and he say, I pray that the Super Eagles wins today's match, in Jesus' name I pray. Even the Muslim will say amen. So together in sports, where in this country, football and sports is a lifeline, particularly football. Football unites not just the states, it unites the country, it unites the countries of the world. So I believe we can do much more in promoting and supporting our sports so that we get the best benefits, as we say. First and foremost, I want to use this opportunity once again to congratulate him on his appointment. I've met him twice now, and I'm going to meet him soon again. And why am I going to meet him is to advise him on what I think from my own views and from what I've seen to improve sports. First, we have talked about it. The development of sports is key, not just the taking part in competitions. Because if you are not developing sports, you are only taking in competition. If you don't win, what happens? But if you develop sports, 1, you are helping the youth. 2, you are helping the nation. 3, you are growing the economy. And thirdly, you are removing restiveness and restlessness of the youth in the society. I want us to advise the minister to key into the development of sports from the grassroots. Let's go back to the schools. Let's go back to the rural areas. Football is played everywhere. Go under the bridges, you see people playing football. Let the minister put in place, through the NFF, a consortium of coaches that will go to these schools, that will go to these corners. Everywhere in Nigeria, you have talents that can be helped, sponsored and nurtured to stardom. Once we do that, our sports will improve. And let the minister put his feet there on ground and say, every club that is playing in the Premiership and the National League must have their feeder teams, must have their own fields and other infrastructures to make them develop sports. Thank you very much. I want to pray for this organization to continue to thrive, to continue to blossom in making money, because without money, this kind of things that I hear cannot be sustained. So God will grow you the more, and your business will continue to flourish.